It's not gonna hear. Let's hope it works. Hello. Hi. Can you hear me? Your microphone is muted. You'll have to unmute.
Hello. Aloha.
Yeah.
Is it Jackie here?
What time is it there?
It's 4:35 in the afternoon.
Oh, right. Okay. It's 1:30 here. So in the morning.
1:30 in the morning. I saw a little bit of the sunset at Stonehenge, which they were live broadcasting.
Right.
It was a bit cloudy, so I don't think I actually saw the sun go between those rocks, but they were broadcasting it at the time that it was
Right.
the sunset.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then broadcast the sunrise as well, right?
Yes, there will be the broadcast of sunrise, and I've got a video I'll be showing about that. Sort of.
Oh, great. So I'm sorry, am I in the middle of your event here, or
We took a break, and
okay.
so we're having a sort of middle of the night chill out time.
Okay.
I think it's just you and me in the room, as it were.
All right. So it's a 24-hour marathon. My goodness.
Yeah.
Will you be up for the whole thing?
Yeah, I'll be up hosting,
Wow.
and people can go. You know.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, and I can't believe how many things are going. I'm already completely overwhelmed just by the different things that I've been participating in today. Some kind of at the same time, like just crazy. And then tomorrow there's a whole round of other things. It's really amazing. I don't know. Are you familiar with the series going on called Humanity Rising? It's led by somebody in Amsterdam. Actually, he seems to be an American living in Amsterdam. What's his name? And they have different speakers every day. They've been having it since May 22nd.
Wow.
And they have all the recordings published on their site if you aren't there live. And they do it at, well, it's 5 to 7 p.m. Central Europe time.
Right.
That's when they do it every day. And they, like today, they had Roland McCready of the HeartMath Institute, my former boss, talking about global coherence and other people who are involved in initiatives about global coherence, like the Global Coherence Pulse and other related things, trying to unite the planet in heart-focused care and positive intention. And Roland did a scientific presentation, and then these other ladies talked more about it, and one led a meditation about it. And there's like a global coherence pulse event tomorrow. And then there's a whole week coming up called Unity Week.
Right.
It's like so many, it's a very positive time right now in the midst of all this other stuff going on. There's so much positive things going on. It's amazing.
I know, it's weird. It's like the dark and the light are really
Yeah.
you know. So are you in Hawaii?
No, I am in Nevada, where my parents live.
Okay.
I don't know if you know, but I was traveling in the South Pacific for 7 months last year. And I returned, I was in the islands. I was in Tonga, Samoa, French Polynesia, the Cook Islands, and Fiji, and then New Zealand. And then I would have stayed longer where I was in New Zealand, but then I got sick. And I didn't know what it was. And I was kind of tired out from my long travels. And so I came back to the US earlier than I had thought. I probably would have gone on to Hawaii from there, but I came back to where my parents live. I wound up having hepatitis A, which is the milder kind, but it was still took a bit of a toll on me. I had to recover from that. And then the pandemic started, and so I haven't gone anywhere. I've just been here.
You've been on lockdown in your parents' place.
Yeah. But it's quite a good thing, I guess, because it's been a place to rest and just sort of focus on my own inner development in a more focused way, and have a chance to just not worry about more of the external stuff for a little bit.
Yeah, it's a good way. How are you traveling about in the South Pacific? Were you doing workaways or?
Yeah, I did 2 work exchanges to start with in Tonga on an island, a remote island where people come to swim with the whales, which is something I've done before and did again. One of them was a formal workaway, and the other one was set up informally by the first workaway with the eco resort next door, which wound up to be quite a resonance. And I did some of my healing work at the second one as well. And then I went on to other places, and I actually just wound up, I did do another formal workaway in French Polynesia on the island of Moorea. But then, like I would say the largest majority of the time, I was just letting things unfold spontaneously and staying with local people who I met along the way. Like, so I call these adventures in trust, because it's very much about learning to trust the universe at deeper and deeper levels, allowing synchronicities and miracles to unfold, and that's what happened.
Yeah.
And
I've heard of a book. Have you heard of a book recently called Humankind?
no.
It's written by a Dutch guy or a Dane or something. It's being read by everyone in because it's been reviewed on the BBC. And it's about how human beings are actually compassionate by nature. And he quotes some research in it, which is about Tonga.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you know the story of Lord of the Flies, when some boys on an island, it was a novel, when these wild boys on an island turn and create these sort of mobs. And William Golding, it was a famous book that we all read back in the 70s about how kids left to themselves become really nasty and competitive and violent. And they end up fighting and killing one of the boys. You know. That's the novel. Have you heard of that book, Lord of the Flies?
Lord of the Flies?
Yeah.
I have heard of it, but I haven't read it.
It's a very dark book. It tells evil. Whereas actually this book, Humankind, is putting a different theory. And it quotes a true story in Tonga, sometime in the 70s. A group of, I think, 10 boys, natives. They were aged between 9 and 11. They were on a couple of boats that were swept away in a storm. Didn't get where they were going and ended up in a very remote island somewhere off Tonga, you know, hundreds of miles away. And they survived, and then they had to live on this island with only the resources that they had, you know, nothing, sticks and stuff. And they spent 18 months stranded alone, these 10 boys. But they built a little economy, and they planted stuff, and they survived. They managed to fish, and there was absolutely no conflict at all. It was a peaceful, you know, they all got on. They invented some rules, like they weren't allowed to shout or argue. And if any had an argument, they had to, you know, they had to not let the sun go down on it. They had to make up before nightfall. And it's a true story. So it's rewritten the history books. It's in this book, Humankind, about how the boys of Tonga proved it's possible to live in harmony. And they built a little hut, you know, they took turns at all the chores. They had another rule, which is they did their work in pairs, and but they never worked with the same person like more than one day. So they kept swapping the pairs. So they didn't start making cliques. Everyone liked everyone else. They all got on. You know.
Wow.
They figured this out all themselves, how to survive.
And these are Tongans.
They were Tongans. I'll send you the link to the book because it's really quite famous.
Yeah, that's true.
I thought everyone on Tonga might be reading it because it's on the map.
I should write it down. I mean, that's essentially what I've been learning on my adventures in trust that I've been doing the last 3 years or so is the fundamental goodness of humankind. Like, because I just go on a miracle budget with very little planned, and I wind up staying with people along the way and meeting all these amazing, generous souls that host me and help me out in different ways and share. And that's what my last 3 years has sort of been about.
Let me just welcome my daughter, Sophia. She's in the room with us.
Yeah. Hi, Sophia. I recognize your beautiful, magical setup there.
Can you unmute, Sophie? And then you can join us. She led the little ceremony that started this evening.
I know. I wish I could have been. There's just so many things I was doing at the same time. I didn't actually have a chance to see your email even until a bit later. Well, but are you going to put it on YouTube?
Yeah, it will be later, yeah. Mm-hmm. Sophie, hello, can you hear me?
Hello, yes. Hi.
I'm back in
Hi,
action.
Sophie.
Oh,
Sophie, I came to your, was it the new moon ceremony or the full moon? The one you
Yeah.
had, was it the full moon or the new moon? Full moon?
I think I was waning, so I was quarter moon.
Oh, maybe, okay. I came to the one that you were leading.
Yeah.
And
Lovely.
it was really
Yeah.
nice. I didn't have my camera on because I was in between other things that I had that day and I was moving around a bit, but I tuned in as much as I could to it and it was really, really lovely. And the
Good.
songs that you sang were really beautiful too.
Gorgeous. Yay, good. I'm glad.
she did something similar just now. It was really nice. Thank you,
Oh,
Sophie, for doing that. It was great.
Yeah, you're welcome. My
I
pleasure.
love your setup there with like the star lamp and the candles. It's so amazing. I love to create magical environments too.
Exactly. I've kind of brought a woodland glade into my living room. Wonderful, but it's been, yeah, it needs to kind of go in a ceremonious fire now, I think, because it's, yeah, I keep tripping over stuff. But yeah.
Diana, introduce yourself because she doesn't know you really. Diana came to stay with me in France on a workaway, but she's
Okay.
from Hawaii. She spent many years. So tell us a bit about your life story, Diana.
Well, I guess I've been involved in the field of spiritual development for a long time, for 25 years. And I used to work at an institute called the Heart Math Institute in the United States, looking at the role of the heart in consciousness and the heart as a conduit to our higher awareness, to our higher self and the intelligence that can come in from that higher dimensional awareness, and the heart's role in connecting us with that. And I was involved in the science of it, really the science of understanding more about what we call heart intelligence, how the heart communicates with the brain, how the heart plays a role in intuition, and plays a much broader role in our overall experience than what, you know, traditional Western science has taught us. But going back to a lot of the ancient understandings of the heart, and then proving that out through modern science. So that was my work for quite a while, and I still teach these heart-based tools and practices for helping people connect more deeply with their hearts. I also lead heart circles that help us create we call it an amplified, coherent heart field, which is like a container for amplified transformation, both personally and for the planet too. So that's some of what I am involved in.
Wonderful, yeah.
Wonderful. She invoked heart energy in her meditation.
Yeah. You're cracking up, Daddy. I can't hear you.
Yeah, you sometimes break up a little.
Sorry about that. My connection here is a bit ropey. So, I was just saying Sophie was also invoking the heart in her.
Oh, nice.
Yes.
Today? Oh, that's good.
Yeah, definitely.
I'd like
it
to
kind
look
of
back.
Came to me in
It came to you?
Huh?
It
a series of symbols. So I'm a visual person. I see, like, I have visions, which is amazing, but I kind of get series of symbols, downloads, and it all kind of came, like, it was all interconnected. So I did Extinction Rebellion, I said in my ceremony, so you might have known from that, but their logo is like the hourglass. And I saw it as like as above, so below, as in time's running out for the planet, you know. But I saw it as above, so below, and then I used that energy, and then when you put them together with all of the alchemical symbols, so for fire you've got, you know, with the lines in the different places, that all then, if you put those all together, that also creates a heart. So it was just, I found these beautiful ways of kind of piecing together all of this, you know, symbology or understanding, or, you know, people's consciousness, but kind of found my own rhythm with it. Like, I haven't read books or anything, it's all just been my own consciousness kind of making sense of it. So it's really wonderful. And it's just those moments when it all slips into place, like just looking up at my chakras and seeing the heart chakra, and I was like, oh yeah, of course, you know. So it's all like these beautiful things just after meditation, and you look, and yeah. So I'd really love to talk to you about that. Yeah, it's just you follow your heart, you know, and it leads you all kinds of incredible places. So
that's that is heart intelligence coming in, the intuitive downloads, right?
Yeah, totally.
And deeper understandings of things on an intuitive level.
Yeah,
it's great.
I just had a weird experience I want to share. We just broke for like 20 minutes because we were having a break. And I went and sat on the terrace here. You know it, Dana, because you've been here, right? And tonight's really, really starry.
Oh, nice.
It's really clear sky, you know. And I saw a slow-moving star. I don't know if it was the space, you know, the space station that looks like a big moving star.
Oh.
Something was crossing. It wasn't a plane. It was moving star.
I wonder if it was a spaceship.
I don't know. I mean, it was kind of weird. But I'm writing a book, and earlier, for about an hour of our previous talks, the speakers were speaking, but I couldn't see them and I couldn't hear them. So I was hosting the meeting here on Zoom, but I couldn't interact.
Oh.
They could hear me speak, so I could do the links between the talks. But then I couldn't hear the talks, which was really weird and frustrating. It's like being locked outside a party, you know. You could see
your own party.
yeah.
I missed the last 3 talks. It cut off halfway through Sophie's. I missed your guided meditations.
Oh.
Where did you take people?
Stonehenge, of
Right.
course.
Okay.
Yeah, and then the stones were singing. So yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And did you have time to get them there and back? I mean, it worked.
Yes, yeah. I kind of just ended with the heart again, another heart, and this guy, and they all kind of just naturally kind of came out of it. But I didn't lead them out because I noticed they all had like opened eyes, and so yeah. I don't know. Maybe I should have guided them out. Because I started singing the bowls and then said, and now the stones, like obviously not like that, but you know what I mean. So I was kind of talking at the same time.
Well, I'll listen to it on the recording.
Yeah, but also, Danny, I think doing it through your computer, I don't think you'll get the sound. If your sound has gone.
No, I will, because the red button says recording, and it's recording to
it's
recording to the cloud.
I know, but the cloud is through your computer.
Yeah, but you guys.
So whatever happens, it will be recorded.
No, you guys could all hear it, so I think the meeting could hear it. It was just me personally.
But we can our devices though.
Well, I don't know. We'll see. The proof is in the pudding.
Yeah, okay.
Silence.
I hope.
I hope we get to hear it.
Wait, were you actually showing Stonehenge? Were you showing the live stream of it, or?
No, I did want to, yeah, but we didn't manage. I did have pictures of it, like relevant photos and stuff. But yeah, no, I'd love to tune into a live stream, definitely.
Well, at some
they have that going on Facebook.
They do, yeah.
Yeah, I saw it earlier, and then they're going to show it again at the sunrise.
Right. So anyway,
Lovely.
let me just share. I was thinking about a book I'm working on, which is called The Principles of Religious Mathematics, Principia Religiosus Mathematica. It's a sequel to Newton's Principia Mathematica. I think there's an overlap between religious studies and mathematical studies, and nobody's ever explored the overlap. So if you think of it as a Venn diagram with 2 circles, one is called religious studies, one is called mathematics, and when they overlap, there's an area between. And I want to explore that in the book. And I got a download of how the book can be structured, like exactly the same as my book on peace magic that I published a few months ago, which you've not seen, Dana, because I wrote it since you came and went. But that's got 2 pages per topic. It's quite structured, it's quite disciplined. It's 51 exercises to do with peace magic. I've invented a whole new field called peace magic. Right?
Peace magic. Wow, that's cool.
It's really amazing. And so anyway, so the same I'm going to do with the religious principles of mathematics. And I was thinking, okay, so one of the double pages would be on the triangle. For instance, take an example. So the history of triangles. It's a big field in geometry. It's very interesting. The properties of triangles. The Greeks studied them. The Egyptians studied them.
Right.
And the first triangles were made on cave walls about 20,000 years ago in Europe. Prehistoric man was making cave triangles, and they meant something in their cave writing, which we haven't translated yet. We don't know what it was. A symbol. So that double page will be about triangles and their spiritual meaning. So you can think about, say, Greek temples, the way they have a triangle at the top, like the British Museum. You know, the columns, and then above that was this long, flat, low triangle.
Yeah.
And that represented the apex, the kind of peak.
Yeah, apex. And then like the double tetrahedron. It's sort of like a three-dimensional version. Yeah. The double tetrahedron is a sacred geometrical symbol connected to a lot of things. So I think that has a whole spiritual dimension to it.
Yeah. And the flat, what occurred to me, we had a talk from an amazing, what was the guy from Israel's talk like, Sophie? Did you enjoy it?
Oh, it was phenomenal. Absolutely amazing. Yeah.
Isn't he Shlomo?
Yeah, no, it was wonderful. I resonated with all of them. They're just all absolutely coming from the same place, you know. It's filled with love. It's beautiful.
He's a judge, Dana, who gave the talk. Shlomo, who worked for the Knesset, which is their parliament. He was ombudsman for future generations. It was an official post he had for 5-10 years in Israel. Every law that the Knesset passed, he had to look at it from the standpoint of future generations, 7 generations from now. How would they thank them for passing it or not? And so he developed this whole idea of future intelligence. We have to look at our actions through the lens of the future. Is that what he spoke about, Sophie? Yeah,
it was kind of, it was just everything he said, I was just like, yes, absolutely. It was like, you have your starting point and you have 2 options with it. So you can either be in your, I can't remember the words he used, that's the trouble. You can either be in your passive place of understanding, or you can be in your active, open, receptive place of understanding, kind of thing. Yeah. And then you can, it's nowhere near as eloquently as he said.
I think I saw the diagrams. He put up some things, didn't he? Talked about proactive, future creating modality. Instead of always being stuck in the past, obsessed with fractures, and we all carry broken dreams, and stepping out of that, we go into our future mode, and we think about doing, creating future, co-creating. So I was thinking about these triangles on the terrace, and also it's a symbol of the Trinity in Christianity. God is a Trinity. And my other daughter, who's a Christian, she just texted me. She wanted to join the meeting just as we were shutting it down, which is ironic. Shanti was going to come and listen.
Oh no! Yeah.
But Christians think God is a Trinity. Well, fine, it is. It's 3. It's a triangle. But that's not all it is. It's 3, and then there'll be another chapter on the 4, the square, as a symbol.
Well, it's the goddess as well, though. Don't forget, the mother, maiden, wise woman. So it's 3 in both, God and goddess. Yeah, but then to the 4. This is
the 4. I mean, I'm stuck with the triangles, and I was sitting meditating on the terrace, and I was thinking, wow, looking at the stars. I could connect any 3 points in this entire universe. Like I could take stars at random, like trillion miles that way, trillion miles that way, and trillion miles that way. And I could make a giant triangle connecting them. And I could do that with every single star system in the entire infinitely vast universe.
Yeah.
So these triangles are pretty cool. They connect.
It's also, it's the creation. So if you have a dot, you're, you know, one thing. If you have a line, you're like, it's two-dimensional, I guess, like a piece of paper. You start with the dot, you go for a walk with 2 points. But if you have a triangle, it kind of can be a third dimension instead of just 2 dimensions. You see what I mean?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
like if you placed it that way round, it then suddenly breaks it open into being another like manifest realm, and then it kind of creates, so it's like the sacred geometry and all the chakras. Like this is where my mind has been going. It's like you start with the triangle, which is the basic, although the base is a square, which I don't get yet, but that's fine. And if you, so when I went to the heart chakra, which was the hexagon, if you put a hexagon at a certain angle and you have the points, you see a cube in the center of it. And then I was like, oh, wow, okay, so that's what it is. They all interrelate and interconnect. And so, like, I wanted to overlay all the chakras together to see what it would look like, this magical kind of, you know, I just really want to see it. I don't know what it would be. It probably wouldn't work, but it probably would if you think about it, like sacred geometry. I don't know, because I'm just a fledgling. I'm just having these thoughts and these visions and then going, but anything you try and make in this material realm that you're seeing in your third eye is just, it doesn't even make sense half the time.
Yeah, what you could do is get some very fine see-through plastic, you know, in the shop.
Yeah, yeah.
You can cut.
Yeah.
And then draw on that the triangle, the square, the different, you know, hexagon and so on.
Yeah.
And then you could
Yeah. That's true.
And then you could see through and see what you get. That's a way.
Yeah, because I want to see the color as well and what happens. Yeah. Yeah.
You could put them on like a you know, a tree. Like put the spine in there, and then literally thread these shapes through the spine and build your tree of life, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Make a 3D
that,
tree of life.
Yeah. It's the Sri Yantra is also in 4 dimension, 5 dimension, I don't know, but it's a flat thing with all the triangles, but it's also a physical thing too. It's amazing. So you see, it just looks like a lump of gold, and you're like, oh, that's lovely. And then it's this yantra which you meditate to, and it's the breaking down of all the dimensions, and so that you're just open to this kind of state of being, which is just, she's the goddess of the 3 worlds. So I'm assuming it's your physical, your spirit, and your, you know, wherever the other one is, material, physical. No, I said physical. Whatever. But like, it's just really, yeah. Sometimes my mind flows too quickly for my mouth to catch up, and then I forget what I've said. But you know, it's fine. But no, it's just fascinating, and I just on this kind of like path of discovery, and it's amazing. Just tuning in.
With us earlier. Sophie's also done some work with a theatre group that have been exploring rituals. You know, you sat in on the ritual, so water, and then there was one on.
Did you say water?
Her one was on water. Do you remember the one you sat in on before?
Yeah.
The direction of the west.
I love water. Water is like my passion, actually.
Yeah. Oh wow.
Understanding.
Yeah. It's amazing. I've been in search for the sacred spring that's near here in Poynings, and we literally just found it yesterday. So I'm just like, yay! Yeah. So it was the most incredible thing to see fresh running water is just the most uplifting thing in the world, because my mum's been on a quest for the water, and here it's all a bit poisoned and gross, contaminated. So we've both been on this kind of river hunting mission. And when we find a flowing water, it's just like, I just want to sit and meditate. And Mum's like, no, come on, we've got to go, because she likes moving all the time. But I just want to sit with the water and just be like, I love it. So yeah, this spring, I really want to go for dawn. I want to see, it's up a hill, and then you have to go through the woods. But there was this robin. I've never been so blessed in my life. He was in the spring, so it kind of like melts into one, but it's got two tunnely areas that come to. And I kind of went down, it's quite steep, so Mum struggled. But the robin was literally just drinking from the thing, and he just looked, he didn't even move. So I think he was kind of used to people, or just it was a really sacred space. But he was so like into us, like he was just kind of darting about and everything. And then Mum was like, I'm going to start walking up because I know it'll take so long. And I kind of stayed, and I was giving some petals, some yellow petals to the river to say thank you, and also to welcome Solstice. And I went like that, and he came literally and fluttered in front of my face. I was just like, oh, I've never seen a robin so close, and his wings and stuff. So I'm assuming someone does feed him, because that's an amazing thing. But he obviously thought it was food. I was like, I'm sorry, fella, it's just some petals.
Or he just loved your energy.
Magical experience. So yeah,
Oh, that's so cool.
I really want to go back. Yeah.
Well, animals are always
so I love
energies.
Where
are you? In what part of England?
I live in Brighton. Yeah, Brighton. So Sussex. Yeah.
Have you been?
Brighton? No, I don't think I have been to Brighton. I've been quite a few places in England now, but I still have to get there.
You must visit.
Yeah.
You can show.
Definitely.
Just very briefly, tell us about your because Diana's done a lot of work with water. There's a part where she's done a lot of swimming with whales and dolphins. Just tell us about your experience with these animals.
About the animals. Yeah, Thomas, just to let you know, sometimes you cut in and out. So if you're going to be, doing a talk or something, you might want to watch, see if your sound is coming through right.
Sure. No, I'll sit closer to the screen. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm an ocean being. I love the water. I just love water in its essence. But yes, I have had a lot of interaction with the dolphins in Hawaii, the whales in Tonga. You can swim with the humpback whales in Tonga. And I just actually did that about a year ago now. I set out on my South Pacific journey in June of last year. And one of the places I went was in Tonga, where I, again, for the second time, got to swim with the humpback whales. And I just, to me, the dolphins and whales are like super advanced consciousness, especially the whales. I would say they're probably the highest advanced consciousness on the planet, much more than we can understand. And it's just an amazing experience to be with them. And I believe that water itself is a very high consciousness being that we have yet to totally understand. And it's my passion. It's actually been my passion for 25 years. It was actually what opened up my spiritual path, was my interest in water. Initially to understand it more from a scientific perspective, but to understand it as a capacity to store and transmit energetic information. And I think that's like a very important role of water that we've only just begun to scratch the surface of, and that there's just so much more going on with water, both the water in our bodies, and also think of the oceans, like how much information is in the oceans, these patterns of information that are interacting and intersecting and informing probably the whole planet. And I do believe the dolphins and the whales are tuned into that network. And that sound is an important part also. Like the sounds that the whales and dolphins make, I think, create energetic imprints in the water that carry information. And so I honestly feel the next level of my service work here on the planet, I hope, has something to do with understanding water at a deeper level. It was funny because I just brought up this image when you were talking about the triangles and the geometries. I'm reading this book on water that's actually from a channeled source, because honestly, I don't believe our current science has quite caught up yet to what I'm trying to really understand about water, even though I've been involved in some science on water as well. But there was this image of, let's see if I can show it here.
Wow. I literally just saw this today. I'm not
Really?
joking.
You're kidding?
Yeah. Literally. So weird. I put it down as the Tibetan prayer wheel thing, you know, the thing that goes together. But it was 2 diamonds and then a petal shape. I didn't draw it, but oh my gosh. There was this guy that it morphed into. Oh, you can't see it all.
Yeah,
no point. But it's like a flower that it morphed into with the. Oh, it's just, yeah. Yes, I hear you.
That's really interesting. Normally I would never have shared this, but I just, right now as Thomas was talking, I searched through my photos that I took from this online version of the book. And it was something he said about the triangles that was, but it's actually here diamonds. So like the, what they explain is that the diamond structure is the fundamental like inner structure of water, and the 2 sort of figure 8 type structure, that's the fundamental structure of light. And then like this intersection point between the water and light is called the apex, which is another word Thomas just used that triggered this, the apex. And that apex is really important. Like it's sort of like, they call this the key, the water key. And if we can kind of meditate on this structure, then it'll take us deeper into an understanding of the water, like unlock the dimensions of water in our bodies and unlock a deeper understanding of it. That's kind of a simplified version, but I just thought I would share that. Yeah, the book I'm reading is called The Water Code, and I have it on Kindle on Amazon, The Water Code.
Right. Can I just introduce Henk, who's joined us from Avebury. Henk is a druid. He's going to be speaking a bit later. But I think Avebury's got some magical water sources. Tell us about water.
Absolutely. The whole idea is that Avebury is built on top of an aquifer. And what I really like in comparison is below the aquifer in Avebury, we have a granite layer, a layer of granite. And so you have the granite, you have the water, on top is the ground layer with the stones, with the crystals in it. If you look at the Egyptian pyramids along the Nile, for example, the Giza pyramid has a granite foundation, and then the pyramid is 2 different kinds of chalk, the chalk for the outer layer and the inner stone, the limestone itself, and then the water of the Nile that overflows once a year comes in contact with the granite below and the limestone above. And we know that granite is negatively radioactive, negatively electricity charged. So the water conveys that electricity to the pyramid, which actually makes it a big powerhouse of an energy factory. And I like to have similar ideas that Avebury works in a similar way, with the aquifer below the Avebury grounds being in contact with the radioactive granite and bringing the energy towards the Avebury stones that contain crystal, which makes it a big amplifier and receiver at the same time. The question is, what are we receiving? And well, and that could be everything.
Cosmic energies.
Absolutely, or maybe funny-looking aliens, but but especially also to bring our thoughts and energies into the cosmos. That is why we have a large variety of people coming here, doing their ceremonies here, and hoping to push their will into the cosmos. And many people come here for the good and the right reasons. But we also have some people with some lesser nice reasons.
Yeah, but you're on duty now to train them and.
Well, it's hard to re-educate a Nazi. They're sort of stuck in their own ideas.
Yeah, they may be
Different awareness levels.
But yeah, we had encounters where they came here and hang their swastika flags over the stones and do their ceremonies and literally called for their goals and ridding the land of Albion of non-white people.
Oh God! Well, no, actually, you can re-educate them, Henk. I promise you. Tell them to read a book by John Toland. It's a 800-page biography of Hitler, and it's the most comprehensive, detailed study of his life ever written. And
I'm not sure if they can read.
That's a slight problem. I've been reading it. It's my bedtime reading over the last couple of months. I'm also reading the Brothers Karamazov of Dostoevsky. I'm using lockdown to read all those difficult books I put aside for years, 600-page books, right? And the one about Hitler is mind-blowing. It shows, without a shadow of doubt, that he was an utter, total, psychopathic, obsessed guy who, I mean, he started out meaning well in the old romantic days, Wagner and, let's all be, fond of Vogel and all that. But he ended up being this psychopathic kind of guy invading Russia. And then he launched an Operation Barbarossa, a ruthless, to the death, no mercy. He suspended the Geneva Convention. And he told all his officers to kill every single person that opposed him, because in his mind, the Bolsheviks didn't have human rights, the Jews didn't have human rights, and so therefore they could be killed mercilessly. And that's where the final solution came from. It's all in his mind, And proper officers of the army were so appalled by this, because it was so against human rights, it was against common sense. It was also bad policy for Germany, because the good Germans were saying, look, we can't go and slaughter every single person in the entire Soviet Union and get away with it. But that was how Hitler was thinking. So in the end, that's where von Stauffenberg did his plot to try and kill Hitler, planting the bomb. Yeah. He was just a normal German officer who was so appalled at this guy. So with all due respect, tell any rogue Nazis wandering around to read this book, and it'll cure them. It's like medicine of any romantic thinking that this guy was a genius. No, he was a madman, and he broke every single rule of ethics in the code of warfare, let alone peace. So it's and we're still living with the consequence of his mental trouble. He should have been in a psychiatric home,
But this is what I can't remember his name. So yeah, the second guy.
Satya.
Yeah. This is what he was saying. Is it's unresolved trouble. So we all know that you can manifest if you're on the right vibration. You can create your positive love vibration, but then if you have something that's unresolved inside you, then of course that's going to come out, and it just gets greater and greater. And that's why we have these destructive people, because they have something in it. So when he took us on a guided meditation, we started with a thing. So mine was, I hate racism. And then we made a ladder to try and overcome it. So each step we'd like greet it, and then we'd go, okay, what can I do to bring more love to this? Blah, 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 blah. And we took it all the way up. And then we had to meet a racist or whoever, but mine was a racist. So I then had to meet the racist, and then I had to be the racist. And it was just a really amazing transformational kind of meditation, because then by the end you're like, wow, okay. And the things that came up to me, and that's where your image really stuck out to me. The last image I got was an eye and a figure of 8 in the center of it, where the pupil would be. And I realized that obviously as a racist, it's understanding and awareness, and I suppose that's just me seeing infinity. I don't know, because it wasn't on its side. Like for me, I got visions rather than words. But it was just a really beautiful thing. So I suppose with the whole Hitler thing, he's just gone a bit too far down the wrong way. And like what we need to do is diffuse it into love. So instead of fixing him, you say, what can I do to meet you? And what can I do to bring us out of that? You know, how do we move forward in love and in light?
That technique should be used globally for many things.
Exactly. But in any situation, in any situation where you feel you're not being recognized, or you feel people are getting attacked unnecessarily, it's an important question to say, what is it that you're trying to like show us? What are you trying to get across? Because at the moment it's not getting across in the right way, or it's creating a negative impact, you know, that it's not helpful to you either. You know, let's actually just come from a place of love and hope to resolve it. So yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like that was a good session that I missed.
It was awesome. Yeah.
It was a good session. Absolutely, I enjoyed it.
Yeah. You got most of that, did you, Henk? You heard him? Yeah. He's quite a character, isn't he? He's a great bloke. Lives in British Columbia. And he's created this thing called Warrior Sage Community, and he's done a lot of trainings and things. And now he's created a wisdom council of elders, so, shamans, and people from all over the planet. Because I think the important thing about the warrior skills are really important: courage, precision, discipline, you know, all that stuff, loyalty, obedience. They're all good qualities to learn, but they're being misused. When they're being used for warfare, in my opinion, I don't know if Sachin went into that in detail, but the trick is to graduate from the warrior class to the druid class. And every society has that differentiation. Every society has its warriors, like Hawaii or American Indian culture or African tribes, whatever, or the Celts. And they were esteemed. The warriors were great. They were, you know, disciplined, loyal, brave, etc. But then when they graduated out of that need to physically go and, you know, slaughter other tribes, they graduate to the druid class, which is transforming conflicts, as Sophie was saying, like going up the ladder of transformation, so that you know, Bin Laden. I mean, this is the joke that people like Bin Laden, the shadow warriors now, because they're mostly, you know, it's now become a psychological warfare operation on the planet. And so our work is even more complicated now as druids. We have to sublimate these psycho warriors that are still trying to create division and discord between the different tribes. Our mission has to be, and this is so important really, is to get beyond the tribalism to a place of universalism, so that humanity becomes one tribe, and that vision of peace can then be grounded in each culture, in each place, in each race, if you want, and in each language. So, which is why I did a dictionary of different words for peace in every different language. What's the language in Tonga, Dana? Is it a form of Polynesian? Do they speak?
Yeah, Tongan. It's Tongan, and it does have. I made a point to try to learn learn some words in each of the different languages in the islands I was in.
Right.
And there are a lot of similarities. I was like sort of looking at the connections between the different Polynesian cultures. I was in Tonga, Samoa, French Polynesia, the Cook Islands,
Right.
and then Fiji, which is a little bit outside of Polynesia, but there's some Polynesian cultures in Fiji. I was even with a certain sort of sub-Polynesian culture there. So I was like looking at the interconnections between them and the languages, and then the similarities with Hawaiian, and
Send me the
really
words.
interesting.
Can you send me the words for peace in all those languages?
Oh my goodness! Well, yeah, I can look them up.
Yeah.
I'll check. I would have certain words that I would ask everyone who I met in the different countries, and then I had enough of a memory of each one to sort of see, okay, so that word just has one letter different, and like turtle, for example, is honu. And turtle was a word that was retained throughout the different cultures with maybe just like one letter different sometimes. So like honu is turtle in Hawaiian, and fonu was the Tongan version, and there was wonu, but like basically that word stayed the same. And aloha, like I think in Samoa they say talofa, and there were other variations of that one as well. And what else? Like Iorana is the sort of like the hello, aloha in French Polynesia, Tahitian, Iorana, and that's like Kia Orana, or Kia Ora in Maori, or Kiorana in the Cook Islands. And so that, anyway, those are some.
Did you go anywhere near the Marshall Islands? Are they in that part of the world?
Oh, no, they're Micronesia, but I'm interested.
I watched a really slightly worrying documentary about the Marshall Islands and the nuclear tests.
Oh, wow.
They're under American control until recently. And if the Americans tested all their H bombs, there's a particular part of the Marshall Islands. And this documentary, it was made by John Pilger, who's a very good investigative journalist. He went there. He interviewed people who'd lived through these experiments, and a lot of the kids are all have been born deformed, and people have. And America has refused to pay any compensation, and eventually they won some victories, but grudgingly. And it's a worrying documentary. Then I discovered I've been writing a book of peace declarations. I don't know if you know that, but I've been working. It's its fourth volume. I've been gathering together all the peace declarations from history that I can find.
Oh my God.
I realized nobody's ever done this before. And so I started, the first ever peace declaration was a treaty between the Hittite Empire and the Egyptian Empire in 1290 BC. And we know because it was found on tablets in the Hittite capital, Hattusha, and the same text was found in ancient Egyptian script in a temple in Egypt. And scholars have worked out it's the same treaty. And it was signed by Ramses II and the king of the Hittites. What's interesting about that treaty, which I've given in English translation, is they invoke all the gods and goddesses of Egypt and the Hittite Empire, including the gods of the mountains, the rivers, and all the rest of it. It's a really religious text. And a copy of it is in the UN headquarters in New York. They've got it, a facsimile, on the wall because it's famous, the oldest peace treaty. So I've started with that, and then I've gone forward into time and down to now, current peace treaty. I don't know if you know this, but there was a nuclear-free zone declared for the South West Pacific region. all the island states signed, it's called the Treaty of, I don't know, Muratonga or something. In about 1985, I got the treaty in the volume. And they've said, they declared they will never have nuclear weapons in any part of that whole South Pacific region. Did you know about that, Tana?
No, but that's
I
a good move.
It's interesting. And I mean, the people of the Marshall Islands have been campaigning for this, obviously. But I discovered that not only in the South Pacific region, but there's a similar treaty in the whole of Latin America called the Treaty of Tlatelolco, signed in Mexico in 1967. I don't know if you know this, but the whole of Latin America have said they'll never have nuclear weapons. No country, Brazil, Chile, Mexico, none. And not only that, but they won't allow nuclear weapons on their soil, nor development or research. And more recently, the same has happened in Africa. There's a treaty, the whole of Africa given up. So I got really excited about that. And I can send you the text of the treaty.
Yeah.
And there's a map, but I don't know exactly because my geography of that region isn't that good. Where is Micronesia in relation to the places you were? Is it closer to Asia?
Yeah, it's more west of those islands and the north, I think.
You were more like in the central Pacific region. Yeah.
Like, well, Tahiti is sort of like, if you go down from Hawaii, it's pretty much just down, like close to Hawaii, just go south. And Tonga's west of there. Cook Islands, a little bit west, but overall just in that general area. I would say Micronesia would be more west and north of where those Pacific Islands are. I'm not the greatest at geography, though. I'd have to totally double check on the map too. It's not my forte, but I have a sense. And so yeah, I was in an area that they call the Polynesian Triangle, which is like Hawaii, another triangle. There you go. Hawaii in the north, and the far eastern point of the Polynesian Triangle is Easter Island, which is called Rapa Nui in Polynesia, and that's considered part of Polynesia. And then the westernmost, I guess, would sort of be Tonga, Samoa, Cook Islands, like that would be sort of the western perimeter of this Polynesian Triangle. Fiji's a little bit outside it. But that all of those cultures are called the Polynesian Triangle. And there was this place, this island called Raiatea in French Polynesia that was once considered like sort of the center, or perhaps even what they call the original Hawaiki, the original point, like the original birth of the Polynesian cultures. So the Polynesian Triangle is a really interesting thing because it's like one bigger culture that's now in all these different islands, and there's a lot of connections between them. And New Zealand's part of it too, actually. Yeah.
And can I ask a question, because Henk brought up rather mischievously the idea of what goes on in outer space. What do the Polynesian people believe they come from, outer space originally, like the Dogon?
I think the Hawaiians have a pretty. Oh, you saying something? The Hawaiians have quite a strong connection to the stars and star origins. Like that seems to be a part of their culture that's pretty accepted and not like some weird thing. I know they have a strong connection with the Pleiades, and the original Mu, which was like the original civilization of Hawaii and probably connected with Lemuria, was believed to be from, beings originally from the planet of Mu, like that came down. They even have a phrase of sky canoes. They came in sky canoes down to Earth, and so there's like that connection there. I've heard of that in Hawaii, and you know of Lemuria, because like the ancient, very advanced civilization of Lemuria was Hawaii and a lot of Polynesia, probably including New Zealand too. It was all covering that area, and it was a very advanced, enlightened civilization that did much healing and had a relationship with the dolphins and whales and the ocean, and did all these advanced technologies with like crystals and sound and amazing things. And I think a lot of people who are drawn to Hawaii and maybe to other parts of Polynesia have like a Lemurian connection. I feel that in myself. And but Lemuria, I think, has a very strong connection with star beings, like the original maybe inhabitants of Lemuria were from other star systems. So I think Hawaii acknowledges that origin.
I've heard similar legends in Ireland among the Druid community. There's a tradition in Ireland that the the original Celtic tradition came from the stars as well.
Cool.
The thing is
Do you have
that
anything?
astroarchaeology is a new science. It's not yet really fully developed. There was an MA course in Britain, I think at Bath University or somewhere. They tried to get an MA going in astroarchaeology, which was reconstructing the astronomical knowledge and the ideas of ancient cultures about the stars.
Oh, wow.
It's shut down. They closed it down. I don't know why.
In Italy, they also have a course for that.
Where
In Italy, they also have a university level on that.
on astroarchaeology? Okay.
Really? Where?
I looked in it myself for here in the UK to get a master's in that. But there's a lot of thesis on academia.eu or com about those studies, because it really, I enjoy reading those where people try to connect, especially Neolithical sites with stars or planets.
Like Stonehenge.
Well, also less famous places.
Mm.
So, because there are so many Neolithical sites all over Europe, and and of course we know Stonehenge has been rebuilt so many times. So it's very difficult to know what is the original Stonehenge, and what are later additions.
Do you remember where in Italy they were teaching about it?
I don't remember, but there are some a lot of Italian work on those websites.
And like, what did you mention? Academia.
You can email each other. I'll put you guys in touch with each other. And because Dana's part Italian, this is why she's
Yeah. I grew up in Italy, partly.
I have to dive through my documents to see if I can revisit it.
You grew up partly in Rome, Dana. Didn't you live for a while in Rome? You went to school?
Yeah, I went to high school at an international school in Rome.
Yeah. And did you ever make it to Damanhur? Because you were going. Did you get there?
I didn't. I almost did. I was considering going there from Lyon, and for some reason, it just didn't quite feel like the right thing to do. It was a little bit complicated.
The guy that set that up, this guy Fulco, he was based on an Egyptian site in the Nile. It means the place of Horus. Damanhur is a very ancient Egyptian city, which was sacred to Horus. And this guy Fulco, who was just a normal Italian bloke, he studied esoteric stuff really, really intensely. and he did loads of past life work, and he got together a whole bunch of people that then carved this temple out underground over a 20-year period, putting in all these magical sites, and he was working with time travel. I know people have been to Damanhur, and I knew a guy who met him and worked with him very closely. They discovered, I don't know, I can't vouch for this, but they discovered a way using crystals and using advanced psychological tools, which they kind of invented or reinvented, a way of astral traveling through time and as well as space.
Wow.
And then they would train people as volunteers to go on a mission, like, you know, like dial a number type thing. And they were doing some very, very advanced stuff. That's what Damanhur was famous for, among esotericists.
I didn't know they were doing that. That's interesting.
Yeah, a friend of mine's written a book about it. Jeff. Yeah, I've got a book about it, which he wrote, and he interviewed Falco about what they were doing and all the details and stuff. I can send you the name of the book.
Falco, actually, I got as far as connecting with, sort of indirectly, but with the guy who is like the main scientist there.
Right.
I don't remember his name. And he had agreed to see me, actually, if I did turn up there. This was a while back, but I sent an email to somebody about what I do or what I'm interested in, and said that I was interested in finding out more about this person's work. And I got as far as like talking to someone connected with him that said, yeah, he would be willing to talk with me.
Keep the contact
I
going.
don't remember that band's name. It's not Falco, but another.
Right. No, Falco died, unfortunately. He's found that he died.
He what? He died?
Well, yeah, he's not in the same body anymore.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's the other person's name? Anyway, he was quite a dynamic figure that gives lots of talks and goes around places, and has published number of books as well on some of the new science.
Excellent, excellent. Look, I think we should let Henk have his talk, because he was scheduled to do a talk at 2. But the woman that was supposed to be doing the talk now, she hasn't showed up. Joy. She did warn me that she might fall asleep because she's 70.
Oh my
and
God.
she doesn't think she can keep. I don't think she's joining us. Nobody's in the waiting room, and I give up. I think we shouldn't wait anymore.
Okay. I have to go like turn something off.
Have a little break, and then we'll ask Henk to give us a talk on Druidry. I think it would be really exciting.
Okay.
But go and turn your thing off. And
Okay.
I'll get some water. Bob.
okay, have a little break. Yeah.
I just need to get some water.
Okay. So, how are you doing, Henk?
Doing all right. I'm seeing a lot of suspicious behavior in front of my house. But there's a lot of cars trying to find a parking place here, and there's a lot of police making sure they don't park.
Whereabouts in Avebury are you?
Right in the middle.
What, in the street that the Red Lion's on, or?
Well, if you have your back to the Red Lion,
Yeah,
then you see on your left hand a small chapel,
I know it well. I used to run meditations there. Yeah, yeah.
and next to the chapel is a very large white house.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, that's where I live.
Oh, okay. Well, there we are. Yeah. Now, back in the 90s, I ran full moon peace meditations in that chapel. I knew the vicar before it was like, then they turned it into some kind of tourist center. But
Well, they're trying to, and you can still rent it.
yeah.
We rent it every winter solstice for the sort of winter solstice feast.
Okay. Yeah. No, it's a nice space. I used to enjoy it. We had just a peace meditation there. When I
No,
lived,
I'm the neighbor of that chapel.
well, there's a small world, eh?
And Gordon lives on the other side.
Right.
Gordon Rhymes and I live on the other side. So
Uh,
I can crawl to the pub when it opens again.
Is it still shut?
It's still shut, yeah. Yeah. I think it will open next week, or they're busy with getting apps for ordering drinks and stuff like that.
Yeah. It's been a very strange, period, this lockdown.
Well, I was hoping that with the lockdown and so many planets in retrograde, we actually could make a push forward in conscious and awareness.
Yeah.
But I do feel that the people who like to keep the control, are very much fighting it to keep that next step in consciousness down.
Yeah. I think, and they're
Because
close to the military elites that run the planet. The military.
if you see that Pluto, Uranus, and Jupiter are in retrograde, and especially Uranus and Pluto, those are planets that affect whole generations.
Yeah.
Neptune as well.
How long are they going to be in retrograde for?
For quite a while. Neptune, for example, the last time Neptune was in retrograde was at the time the American independence was declared.
1776 or whatever.
In 250 years ago.
Blimey.
So it is interesting that now you have a very destructive man in the White House. You see all the protests and the uproar exactly when Neptune goes in retrograde, trying sort of starting a new way of living in America, because people are sick of being target practice for the police.
Well, quite. Yeah. No, I mean, it's horrendous what's been going on there. And today in the States, there's been this digital march on Washington for the poor. I don't know if Dana knows about it because she's speaking to us from Nevada. But they were trying to emulate Martin Luther King's Million Man March on Washington, but doing it online. And I've been listening to speeches. It's about the poor, which is the majority of Americans now are poor, disenfranchised.
Yeah.
A lot
of I expected people in England I'm waiting for them to rise. I mean, with Boris Johnson now, he said, well, I can't feed the poor children, but I can't paint a fucking Union flag on a plane for $1 million. I mean, how can we not be angry about that?
Yeah, I mean, the British character is slow to get angry, but once it finds a just cause, then it pursues it to the end. I think that will come, obviously. At the moment, they've got this veneer of respectability, the Queen, the establishment, the Constitution, the Church. They're all.
I'm part now of the Wiltshire Multi-Faith Council.
Okay.
And I was told that from the 244,000 working people in Wiltshire, 70,000 are on furlough, and 12,000 have been fired. We're talking about more than 30% of the population of Wiltshire. And the big question is, how many of those 72,000 will get a job back or will be rehired? That's massive, and that's just Wiltshire.
Sure.
Those are really things to worry about, and especially as the rent, you can ask for a holiday on your rent because of furlough. Well, that period will end the 31st of August. So if you rent from a private owner, he can say on the 1st of September, you owe me rent for 5 months.
You have just late. Yeah.
Yeah. So on the 1st of September, he can say, well, you've got 10 days to pay me the remaining amount, or I'm going to kick you out.
Yes. Well, That's capitalism. You know, that's
I don't mind capitalism, but there is a problem with super capitalism, and I'm going to talk about that in a while as well.
Mm.
There's nothing wrong with capitalism, but there is something wrong with super capitalism. I mean, even one of the big universities in France, where all the CEOs like to have, you know, some degree from.
Yeah.
One of the teachers said they were introducing ethics as a course because they get questions from managers. When is enough enough? If I get a 10 million bonus and my friends get a 12 million bonus, should I want one of 40 million? Or should I just accept that 10 million is a nice amount as well?
No, ethics is absolutely critical.
I mean, in 2008, the Bank of America paid out $12 billion in Christmas bonuses. $12 billion. And there were six people who would get 500 million for a Christmas bonus.
Right,
What the fuck?
A movie by Michael Moore called Capitalism, you see.
Yeah, I read his books and I see his movie, but can you look in the mirror and say to yourself, yeah, I worked hard enough to get that 500 million Christmas bonus?
Well, no, you have to be in a bubble of some kind of madness, like some American elites are, you know, but the vast majority of people are not. So
no, but $500 million, that can feed a small city for a few years.
Sure. Yeah.
It's just, if someone would say to me, well, Henk, I'm going to give you a 500 million Christmas bonus, I said, well, you know, don't expect me to be there the 1st of January. Because that's so much money. I cannot even, I mean, you cannot even spend the interest you get on it.
No, I mean, it would be absurd. Yeah. Okay, look, I think we should, what are we? We're coming up to 2. John,
yeah.
I'm not sure if you were waiting for me or not, but
all right, no, we're going to restart now. And let's hear from Henk, because he's bringing his own unique perspective. I think originally from Holland, right?
Yeah.
And then he can tell us a bit about his life story, how he ended up being a druid in Avebury at the heart of Wiltshire.
Well,
Sophie, my daughter, wants to visit Avebury and come and meet some of the druids. So.
Well, everybody's welcome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was near there once and I didn't quite make it. I was in Froome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and everybody was talking about it, but I don't think I actually made it to see it.
Okay, well, you're there now in virtual.
Yeah, virtually. Yeah. Well, I can turn around the camera, but it's still dark, you know. Luckily, most people listened and didn't show up.
It's the most beautiful. I mean, it's more friendly than Stonehenge. Stonehenge has always been associated more with a masculine energy. There's something very wise and ancient, deep at Avebury, which. So we're honoured to have you here on our little mini conference for the Solstice. And although it's the Midsummer Solstice Stonehenge Peace Festival, we're also including in that Avebury because it's all one World Heritage Site. UNESCO has declared that Stonehenge and Avebury are joint. They're one World Heritage Site. And since I chair this Truth and Reconciliation Commission for Stonehenge, well, also Avebury, really, I've been trying for some years to get justice for the people that were all beaten up at the Battle of the Beanfield in 1985, and also more friendly reception for spiritual pilgrims coming from all over the world, instead of this annual battle with the police. And you know, they treat spiritual pilgrims like some kind of underclass, it seems to me. And I took on that case in 1998 with a friend of mine, George Persoff, who was a pagan priest, who came to me when I set up this multi-faith mediation service through the University of London. And I got really, you know, to me, it's a paradigm clash between the right to have indigenous pagan sanctuaries around the planet, including in Europe, or to see them all as just money-making tourist projects like Stonehenge has become. And they've done the same in Newgrange, building little museums and giving people a tourist experience rather than an actual transformative.
No, it's in France as well at the Karnak. You cannot really visit Karnak anymore either. You go to a virtual, which is a shame.
Yeah. Okay, go for it, Henk. It's your.
I'm not sure if I can fill a full hour, but let's see how far we get. So welcome everyone. We can see we have a full Zoom here. My name is Henk, and I'm originally from the Netherlands, and I moved 5 years ago to the UK, and last year moved into this beautiful cottage in the middle of the stone circle of Avebury. And I do call myself a Druid priest, and I take my priesthood very serious. For many people, Druidry is a philosophy or a way of thinking. For me, I see it as a religion, and I see my activities within the stone circle as priest work. So today I want to talk to you about a few things. One of them is about peace. One of the other topic is how I see Druidry. And the third one is how we're going with Druidry in the future. So the first on peace is whenever we do a Druid ceremony, we call for peace. We call for peace in the east, the south, the west, and the north, and then we call for peace in the whole wide world, because we realize without peace in our hearts and minds, no work can be done. And because if we have peace in our hearts and in our minds, we can analyze a situation, we can reflect, and we can try to understand the position or the ideas of someone else. And I think that is one of the greatest important achievements of the Druids. They were able to see both sides of an argument and make a conclusion out of that. And as I like to see it, when I have peace in my heart and mind, I can start a dialogue with everyone. And once you have a dialogue with someone, you can create an understanding. And once you have understanding of the situation, you can get a mutual respect. You can still disagree, but without the childish and the emotion and the ego. So walk away, respect the other's position, but fully disagree with it. And I think if you look, for example, at Stonehenge, I think that was built in the intention of the design of Stonehenge. If you bring two quarreling parties to the center of Stonehenge, and you put one of them on each side of the altar stone, and they start screaming at each other because they're really angry, well, their voices will echo through the circle of the stones. So nobody can hear each other. So they have to calm down, speak in a normal way, start the dialogue, understand why the other person really dislikes the other person. They still may disagree in the end, but at least they had the opportunity to talk on a normal way, understand what they're saying, and find some way of resolving the disagreement. And in order to do that, we need to learn to set aside our emotions and our ego. And one of the ways of doing that is do the grounding exercises and attune yourself with the cycles of the earth, the 13 moons a year, the sun, the solar cycle, and connecting with the universe. Doing that is for me one of the core pillars of Druidry, having mind over muscle. If you look at the current world politics today, you see exactly the opposite. You have people like Vladimir Putin, you have people like Donald Trump, Boris Johnson, Scott Morrison in Australia, you have the president of Brazil, you have János Áder in Hungary. They're all screamers, they're all shouters, they're all look at me, ego, and a lot of emotion. And then we are surprised that nothing is happening, that we are in a standing still situation. We're actually taking steps back because we are not using our mind to control and analyze the situation. We are just going from opportunity to opportunity, from tweet to tweet, and we're not going anywhere. And you can see, you can feel the unrest. And I do hope, with all the planets in retrograde we have here at the moment, that we learn from that and say, look, well, muscle over brain is not working. And Brian May had a thought a few years ago, common decency, where you would not look at which party a person is for, but you would look at what does he actually stand for. And I think we should re-look at that and look at our future leaders. I mean, the CEOs of the big companies are all full of ego and emotion, creating this super capitalism, and it's breaking us down. It is making us step back instead of going forward. And that is, I think, one of the major things that is going wrong at the moment, and why we're not improving. So that is about peace, how we start every ceremony. The second part of our Druid ceremony is calling upon the earth. And in Avebury, we do that through the prayer Septimus taught Terry Dopney. And I like to repeat that prayer here as a dedication to Terry, who is in hospital at the moment, hopefully to be released Monday. And it goes as follows. It says, Earth, give us thy strength, and with that strength, knowledge, and through knowledge, understanding, and with that knowledge and understanding, the understanding of justice, and through the understanding of justice, the love of life itself. And I think there's a lot of power and strength in that, because we do have to realize that Earth is our home, it is our land, and as far as we know yet, without her, we have no place to go. There is no planet B, there is no plan B. You know, we're stuck here on this planet, floating through sky, and we cannot wreck it. So with the peace in our hearts and minds, and with the blessing of the earth, we can talk a little bit about Druidry. The universe has brought me here over the course of 25 years by first discovering that I was a Druid, which shocked me, because at the same time when I was told that I was a Druid, I saw a documentary the day before about stoned Druids in Stonehenge, telling the reporter how good it is to be a Druid in Stonehenge. So I was actually quite offended. And I said, well, are you comparing me with those lot? And they said, no, look deeper into it. And they gave me a contact of a Druid in Amsterdam. And I worked with him for a year. And at the end of the year, Simon Fonseca, a London Druid, came to Amsterdam to that grove, we started talking, and Simon said, "You should come to Avebury." And I said, "Yeah, sure." I had no idea about Avebury or where it was in England. And I said, "Sure, when?" And he said, "Oh, well, in 6 weeks, it's summer solstice. So that's a good point to go." And yeah, 6 weeks later, I put my first step on Avebury, and I knew I was home. I put my foot down on the parking lot, and the connection was immediate. And that was special. That was the first and only year on Avebury where I had 6 perfect sunrises in a row. I still blame Terry that he did that on purpose. And I sort of never left. In the beginning, I've been traveling a lot, 3-4 times a year, coming here at festival days. And 5 years ago, we made the move to come to England. And last year, there was an opportunity to rent this beautiful cottage here in Avebury, which I thought was completely unaffordable to me. But apparently, they lowered the rent. So it was just all the puzzle pieces came together. And now we're here for a year. And it is absolutely amazing. And it gives me the opportunity to test all the theories that are out there, to go out in the middle of the night and see indeed if Sirius is rising above a certain stone, or that the Pleiades is right on top of us. As I've been to several English heritage presentations, they keep saying that Avebury doesn't have any known or scientifically approved alignments. And I sure do hope to prove them wrong one day. That is the goal, the goal for now. Earlier I said that attuning to the Earth cycles and to the planetary cycles is one of my core duties as a druid. But for me, it is also matching the lunar calendar, the solar calendar, and the stellar calendar to sort of merge them together and discover why Beltane is on Beltane. Because Beltane is not on the 1st of May because the calendar says so. Beltane is when the moon is full, when the hawthorn is flowering, when the birds lay their eggs, when certain stars herald Beltane. For me, it is finding out all those markers and say, okay, based on these markers, Beltane is tomorrow or next week or whenever. It's finding out if we know that the solar year is 365 days, and we know the lunar calendar is 384 days. So the moon is sometimes ahead or sometimes late or sometimes early. So what effect does that have on the crop by an early moon or a late moon? Or is there no effect? That is an easy question to ask now, but 5,000 years ago, that was the difference between life or death. Because last year, for example, the harvest started on the 18th of July. This year, the harvest will probably start much closer to August. That is a gap of 14 days. If you cannot predict that there will be a gap between your leftover foods and the new harvest, people are going to die. Imagine the amount of pressure on the druid in those days where the half of the village is really in hunger and the druid is saying, no, the barley is not ready yet. you have to wait another week. That is the role of the Druid, and that is why I call the harvesting time Judgment Day for the Druid. If he does it wrong 2 years in a row, well, I'm quite sure he will be sacrificed before the third year. So it being the Druid of the village is a very important role, and it's a very serious role. It is not, well, it's fancy weekend, let's dress up. It is all about being very much in touch with the land, feeling the land, seeing the signs, and predicting what is happening. And Silbury Hill is part in that line of prediction, probably being a very early water barometer to predict whether you're going to have a dry spell to bring in the harvest or not. Because if you bring in the harvest during a rainy day, it will start to rot, and you'll have a problem with making it till the next harvest period. So for me, Druidry is all that, is questioning what does the shape of the cloud tell me. If we have a rainy season, how long will it last? Why do we have a dry spell now? Were there signs telling me that we're going to have a dry spell or not? In the lands around Avebury, there is a lot of rapeseed being grown for a few years now. And this year they had a lot of infected rapeseed. A lot of the harvest cannot be brought in because it got affected. Is that something we could have foreseen? Is there those questions I like to contemplate about and think why and how, and that is, yeah, that intrigues me. And it also intrigues me that when people 5,000 years ago, they were answering those questions. They knew the answers. But if we go to our history books in school, they were talking about barbarians and savages in bear cloth. But that sort of what I see here, building this stone circle, taking 100, 120 years to put one stone in place, shows me completely the opposite. Especially if you take the lifespan of people in those days. You're talking about 6, 7 generations before one stone was ready. Silbury Hill, it took them 118 years to build. It is incredible over how many generations the knowledge was brought, and that people understood that the Druid was not actually helping on the land. He was not fighting in the wars. So he was not contributing to the community directly. Yet they say he is important enough to give him his daily food and his drinks, so he can help us enlarge the production. That thinking, that state of mind, is of enormous intelligence in that period. And if we look at it now, Avebury is works with shadow casting, so that means it's 4 minutes accurate. Stonehenge is 500 years younger than Avebury, built 500 years later, is a minute accurate. You know, if you see scientifically that we have not grown that much smarter since the Neolithical days, relatively, and we have forgotten a lot. And it intrigues me to walk in this land, rediscover, reconnect, and see what they actually meant. I mean, we have a lot of theories on Avebury, but we still do not know what it really was. There is no scientific explanation yet. We know it was a meeting place. We know it is a lunar circle with solar aspects. That is where the femininity of Avebury comes in. Stonehenge is the opposite. It's a solar stone circle with lunar aspects. And I think it is connected much to Mars as well. So that makes this place incredibly interesting to me and to many people. And I like to share that passion and that enthusiasm with anyone who dares to ask. To talk about the future of Druidry, I think we need to recognize the past as well, and acknowledge our elders and people like Septimus, like Arthur and Rollo, Simon, Thomas as well, Veronica, Danny Price, Philip Shellcross, Terry Dobney, Gordon Rhymes. Those were the people who paved the road for us, for our generation. They were our pioneers, and they literally fought for our rights to start celebrating our festivals and our moon ceremonies, and I think that needs to be acknowledged. I call them crowbars because they literally broke the doors open, and that gave me the opportunity to work with Terry here on Avebury for the last at least 15 years. Terry is the Archdruid of Avebury and Keeper of the Stones. And it is the dedication of people like him that we are now on the census that Druidry in England is an accepted religion. And I pride myself that I wrote it on my diversity form for my work, which made my my buddy blush a little bit, because he saw the same documents and he would ask me, I wonder what the Druids on Stonehenge do to this weekend. And I always would say, I don't know, I go to Avebury. But the dedication of our elders makes us that we can celebrate our festivals, our 13 moons, every year, and many more ceremonies every year. Here in Avebury, we were able to build a situation of mutual respect with National Trust, with the locals, and the church. And especially around the solstice days, we do have multi-faith ceremonies where even the vicar sings, "We all come from the goddess." It is an exceptional situation where the local vicar sees us as equal priest to her. And that is because of the dedication of the people who came before us, and we need to acknowledge that, and never ever forget that. So that is for about what we have built up, and places like Avebury and Stonehenge will always inspire people to become interested in the old ways. And I think it is our duty to make sure that the following generations do not have to reinvent the wheel. That is our only job and our only duty, to pass on the knowledge. And I think therefore we should stop thinking where Druidry can bring us, but we should start thinking, where do we want Druidry to be in 250 years from now? Just to name a number. Where, and I'm quite sure that people in 250 years from now will still do ceremony here on Avebury, but we have to make sure that the roads paved for us will be even smoother for the coming generation. I recently started my own order last year, and our goal is to ensure that the knowledge that we have received is ready for the next generation. And we do that on a local level here at Avebury, but I think that organizations like COPDO should be involved in sharing that knowledge. And I don't think that COPDO is the Council of British Druid Orders here in England. I don't think COPDO should offer a course, but they should be an information hub, a library, where you can find the knowledge that all the Druid Orders combinedly bring together, and also do have an authority on saying, well, this is fake news, this is fake knowledge. Do not, we fell into that trap. This is tested. This is how we've done ceremony. This is what works. This is how you can do it. And I think that there is a role for COPDO being able to be a library of and a network of saying, well, if you want to do ceremonies up there in that area in England, well, we know people who work there as well. And these are rituals, how they do them on the Isle of Wight, or how they do them in Southend, or how we do them on Stonehenge, or on Avebury, or in Anglesey. Just to build the knowledge and to look forward and be that open window to the next generation. It's not important who or what does something, because we're only here for 80 years if we're lucky. But it's always the next generation that is important. And you can see that with every generation, the children are becoming more and more awake, and they're getting smarter and smarter and bringing more knowledge from the past. So I think in ways of trains, we are the track layers, and the future generations are the trains and who will drive on the tracks that we have prepared. It's a very humble role, but I think it is absolutely necessary. And especially not just the knowledge of the festivals, but the knowledge of finding peace in mind and heart, finding ways of mind over muscle. Being able to step back, analyze the situation, what is going on, why is this going on, deduction, is the academic thinking. And we are far too short of that in leading levels all over the world, and we need to bring that back. And I can only encourage people who are active in the Druid world to go into politics and bring that thinking into the politics and away from the muscle and the shouting and the 140 characters in making politics these days, or in the one-liners or the opportunists. They had that time. Now we need to step forward. We need to step into the light We need to raise the vibration. I mean, there is no shortage. We just need to learn to share. And I think that is a lesson for the coming generations. I hope to see it before I leave this planet, but I'm quite skeptical. So that is how I see Druidry into the future, how I see the Druidry around me, and how I see peace. And it's not quite an hour. But if there are any questions or any reactions, I am happy to discuss or answer any questions.
Right. Thank you very much, Henk. That was very succinct and well explained. Well, I have my first question for you. You said that you were planning to leave the planet.
Well, after 60 years.
Yeah, I mean, in my understanding, druids don't leave the planet. We keep coming back till the planet's sorted. You know, and you didn't mention reincarnation. I mean, what are your longer term plans? I mean,
I always hope that this is my last life.
You hope so?
No. If I go through the knowledge of Terry, how Terry trained me, Terry always said, "You live forever through your offspring. Your DNA comes in your children, and as long as your children keep doing the naughty thing, then your DNA will live forever into the future." I am in the situation that I will not have any children. I will not have any offspring. So my DNA will stop with me. But the scary thing is my brother recently had a daughter, and she looks remarkably like me. So maybe the universe is playing a trick on me.
Right, well, that's very nice. Okay, so any other questions? Dana, do you want to?
Sure. Yeah, I had two questions, actually. One, I thought you said somewhere near the beginning that someone told you that you were a druid and then you kind of realized it and came into it. Is that?
Yeah, that's true. I've been sort of, from the age of 8, I had sort of psychic moments. I could predict the results of soccer matches and things like that. And I could see, even if I closed my eyes, I could see how the goals were scored. So, and I knew when someone in the family would die up a week before everybody else knew that. So I had these psychic moments, and from the age of 12, I tried some Zen Buddhism in combination with judo as martial arts. And I realized I wanted more, and I started exploring witchcraft and Wicca. So I generally built up my spiritual path, and then I had a forest walk with a group of young pagans. We were all 16, 17, 18, and one of the persons who was in that walk, he looked at me how I walked through the forest, and he said, "I think you were clearly a druid. The way you walk through the forest, the way you walk and leave no trail." He said that is typical druid behavior. And then I started reading into it, and I said, "Yeah, I can agree with this. I can agree with that." And then I joined the Grove in Amsterdam, and the energy felt really well. I was like, "Yeah, I'm very happy with this." It was an Obot Grove, and then Simon brought me to England and introduced me to Terry, and seeing the sunrises here, I was just, I knew I was home.
Wow.
It was, yeah, it's an amazing journey that not only spiritually the doors opened, but also through my working career, I was moved through different places, and even now in these difficult days, I feel that I am moved within my business to places where at least I can make money, and I'm not on furlough, and I'm really busy, and it is as long as you, yeah, I fully trust in the universe,
Mm.
and I do my druid bit here, and I feel very much it's a symbiotic um, movement going on where I do my work for the universe and the universe looks after me. It's
Right.
it's yeah, special.
And what was your second question, Dana? Did you have a second one?
Yeah. Hello, Bishi, by the way.
Here's my. Can you see her?
I saw part of her.
Right. Yeah.
Um,
She's saying hi.
the other question was, you said that Avebury is a lunar circle with solar aspects. I was just
Yes.
wondering what that means.
What that means is that the lunar influence is larger than the solar influences. We have an Avebury consists of 3 circles. It has a large outer ring, and it has 2 smaller 28 stone circles in the middle. I very much strongly believe that the outer circle matches with an 8-year lunar cycle, which the people believed in the days that they built Avebury. We know now that the full lunar cycle is 18.6667 years, and we can see that back in Avebury, in Stonehenge. In Stonehenge, they realized a full moon cycle is 18.667 years. The people who built Avebury still believed it was an 8-year cycle. I think the difference between it is within a day. So I think it's pretty accurate for 5,000-6,000 years ago. And the farmers, they use a lunar cycle to count when to do the seeding, when to do the harvesting. Those are all lunar based moments. So you can clearly see that Avebury was used to improve the harvest, to maximize the harvest and get enough food for a whole tribe and situation. Where Stonehenge is much more, okay, we can feed the population. Now, how can we improve our solar predictions? And you can see that Stonehenge is considerably more accurate than Avebury.
Interesting. The Hawaiians use the lunar cycle too for all of their agriculture and fishing and all the rhythms of the harvest.
Well, you can clearly see that. Well, we have 8 pagan festivals a year. 4 of them are lunar based, and they are all agricultural connected. And if we read the books on the Celtic religion, is that they first started with the 4 lunar festivals, and the solar festivals were added later because they don't add anything to the agricultural life. The summer solstice is a very nice moment, and it's an important moment because we celebrate the death of the sun, and we wait for the sun to move back east again, because from winter solstice the sun rises southeast, and it travels through from December towards towards March, the equinox, it rises when it rises due east, and then for the summer solstice, it moves up north till northeast, and that is the maximum output of the sun. And then when we go towards autumn equinox, it moves back from northeast back to east. It is that turning point what we look for at the solstice. Not so much the longest day, but the moment that the sun says, okay, I've reached my maximum output, now I'm going back to east. And that is when the days are becoming shorter and we know winter comes. That's why we call it the death of the sun.
Well, let's not kill him off too quickly. It's still.
No. But I mean, I remember the ceremonies where Terry said, okay, let's emphasize the death of the sun in the morning ceremony, and for example, when he would call east, he would say, well, it takes 8 minutes to suffocate without air, and after 6, and when we went to south, he said, well, if the fire brigade comes after 6 minutes, they're not going to try to take you out because you will not survive the fires. And if you're 3 or 4 minutes underwater when calling west, well, then you're dead as well. Not everyone understood it, that after a whole night of celebrating and drinking meat, but at least we tried. But it is one of the more serious festivals by topic, but the celebrations are one of the greatest.
Okay, Sophie, do you have any questions? Are you still there?
Yeah, she is, but on mute.
Okay. So put your microphone on. I'm sure she's got some questions for you.
No, I hope not difficult ones.
No.
Clever girl.
Well, no, it just oh, I'm stuck again on my blooming costume. Just you say paving the way for the new generation. So I had a calling. I just felt it. I could feel it in the woods, and I just knew that I kind of sensed the world in a different way. So and also my dad's Druid, so it kind of helped. But I just knew from a very young age that I was connected in a way that I was gifted with that connection. But it's been a very isolated journey. I've kind of just made it. I've lived it, and I've just experienced it. Like you say, you find it and you nurture it. But I just wondered, what would be your advice to me? Because I don't have an order. I don't have anyone around me, really. I don't even know who the Druids here are. Who should I do? What would you say my next step is? Because I've found my calling. I'm on this spiritual quest, but I just feel like I should be around Druids and stuff. Because
when people come to me and say, I want to be a Druid, and the first thing I say is, you don't want to be a Druid because it's not a very nice life. But if you want to walk or start the path, I always say start by following the moon. Start to follow the dark moon, and then from dark moon to full moon, and then from full moon to dark moon. So you have something to do every 2 weeks. And those 2 weeks go faster by or quicker by than you actually think. People think, oh, once every 2 weeks, that's easy. The time really flies. It's just build up that connection with the earth, with the moons, because I truly believe that when the Romans 2000 years ago understood that with Christianity they could enslave and control people, they deliberately took us away from the 13 moons into 12 months, taking us off the natural cycles of the universe. And it's the same question when you start a new job and your boss asks you, well, where do you want to be in 10 years?
Yeah.
Well, that is an unnatural long period that we are not built to answer those questions. We're not. We should break up the year in much smaller fractions. And and when you connect to the moons, every 2 weeks you've got something to do. Every 6 weeks we have a pagan festival. You feel you're less vulnerable to stress, work-related stress, and you live much more in the moment. You can use your mind a lot better. And when you feel the moon, you can actually feel it. You can feel it build up. And same with festivals. A festival is not one day. The energy slowly builds up. It peaks on the day, and then it slowly builds down. And getting in tune with those energies, that is what Druidry is about, and not so much what is in the books. I'm quite disappointed with most books on Druidry.
Exactly, which is why I thought finding the wisdom keepers, because I would rather have it orally, because it was never written down in the olden days. And I'm doing it. I know I'm on the path, and I'm making a moon garden. So I've been tuning into the moon for a very long time now, and I'm finding, when the hawthorn's out, and I'm trying to keep a record for myself of what each time, even a week or even like a 2-week period, whatever, but when I'm noticing what plants are out and then what plants are now dying, which so I know I'm on the path. I just thought, just because you said you found a pagan forest walk. That sounds amazing.
Yeah, well, we had in Holland we had a forum called Silver Circle, and they had a youngsters department, and so we just had this walk with 18 people between 16 and 20, and still a lot of them are in my friend group from that walk, and
Amazing,
we've been on this journey together for 20, 23, 4 years, and it's really amazing. Some people disappear because they sort of stopped in their progression, or they said, okay, well, this was enough believing in fairy tales and go on with normal life. But you keep a core of friends, and yeah.
That's very interesting. I mean, something you could organise, Sophie, is you could do the same like a pagan walk, a druid walk around the south.
That was the next step. Yeah, I wanted to take people through the trees and get people to connect to a tree that spoke to them. Just take people out, and then because I've been trying to learn the Aurum runes. I heard a phrase Celtic shaman, and I was like, oh wow, I think that actually might be me. But I don't know, because this is the thing, I have these channels and this open activation, and it's amazing, and I'm so grateful, but it's kind of leaves me a bit question marks, because I'm like, okay, how do I make sense of this? But I know Mum has Irish roots and Celtic thing, so it's like I'm trying to make sense of what I have and what it is, and I can read tea leaves and all of this stuff. I've got this wealth of knowledge passed down through wisdom keepers, and I'm just still trying to, I am understanding it, but I'm just, I suppose, more open to possibilities of how to channel it and use it to help the universe, to help for the greater good, you know.
Okay, those are very good questions. I've got a comment, not so much as a question for Henk. It's just an observation, because here in France, all the calendars, you know, you go to the bank, they give you an annual calendar, or you talk.
Yeah.
In France, they say that what we call Midsummer Day, right now, is the start of summer. This is,
Yeah, I heard that before. Yeah.
and a lot of people think this is the beginning of summer. Right? There's a kind of schizophrenia in people's minds. I've come to a slightly different view of the nature of the calendar, which I've worked out. I just want to share with you guys, and why I think that both the sun and the moon are important and have been from very early on. So whilst one might privilege the moon for some types of things, I think the sun is important, and I think the equinoxes and solstices were known also very early on. So I'm slightly differing from what you were saying, because you were implying that the lunar calendar is the very first, and the solar calendars. I think the two have always been important. But my way of working out the calendar, this is my current thinking, right? And it works mathematically. If you take today, you know, midsummer solstice, as literally the middle of summer, we have 4 seasons, right? Spring, summer, autumn, winter. And if we think of them as a solar cross, so you make a circle and you have the cross, the winter solstice, summer solstice, and then the 2 equinoxes. The places where they fall, like June 21st, March 21st, and December 21st, and September 21st, if you take those as the midpoints exactly of the cycle, and then you you divide 365 by 4, you get a certain number. You halve that number and you count the days either side of the 21st of June. So you count back to, and it comes to Beltane.
I very strongly disagree with that.
Fine. If you count the other way, it comes to Lunar.
Yeah.
And in other words, the equinoxes provide the fixed points.
No, absolutely. You use the equinoxes to reset your watch, and because you know the sun will rise dead east and it will set dead west.
Yeah. So I mean, that works to me anyway. So when people say to me that today is the start of summer, I say no, that's ridiculous. It is literally the middle of summer. We've enjoyed ever since Beltane. We've had beautiful, the beginning of summer. Now we're going into the the rest of summer. So I don't think of today as the death of the sun. I think of it as let's say we're coming into the sun's maturity. We still have beautiful rest of June, July, August. So it's a more gradual thing, I think. Maybe it's a Wiccan thing. They like killing off the Oak King. I don't know.
No, they sure do like that killing. What is your idea on the colony calendar, which is the French Gallic calendar, where they sort of try to combine the lunar and the solar calendar and come to 55 phases, a cycle of 55?
It's a good question. I've seen the original. It's in Lyon, which Dana was visiting. I don't think she went to the museum though. I've been to the Gallo-Roman Museum in Lille, where it is, and I just published a 3-volume encyclopedia of Druid studies, which I recommend to anyone that's interested in this topic. And you'll find there's a whole entry on the Collini calendar where I go into it in great detail. They were interested in long-term cycles. It wasn't, you know, they were looking at many years sequences. And I think that's one of the interesting things about the Druids is, as you rightly said, they had an intergenerational long-term perspective. So, you know, they were interested in the long-term lunar cycle, which is pretty mind-boggling, really, because one of the problems with modernity is everything is on such immediate short-termism. The next post on Facebook, the next 5 minutes. Yeah. What's Trump going to tweet in 10 minutes? We've lost all sense of time and proportion. And I think this is what I call the militarization of time. The military are concerned with every second. And controlling, what they're trying to do is prevent us thinking peacefully. If we're always thinking about the next 5 minutes, how am I going to pay that bill? I've got to pay the electricity bill now. I've got to do it, you know. We're always, and this is the militarization of capitalism. Unfortunately, the internet has been used as a tool to enslave us to short-term thinking. There's no time to go, and what you would have done in the days was go for a week camping up on Windmill Hill or Silbury Hill and watching the sky. Grandfather explain the long-term cycles, that star, this star, and when he was a boy it was there. You know, there would be that sense of eternity in the skies. We've lost that. We just live from moment to moment in fear.
Yeah, it's attention span as well. That people just literally are flicking through life instead of giving that stillness to look at the expansiveness of the sky and giving themselves that peace within, like you say. My battery is literally about to die on my iPad. I didn't want to just cut out without saying goodbye and thank you. Okay. I don't know what to do because it's balanced on a clock, like it's about to die.
Well, don't worry. Well, we're probably going to have a break soon anyway. It's coming up for 3 o'clock, and I think we might have another little break. I think who's on next? Let's have a look here.
I think you are.
Well, I'm supposed to be speaking, yes, but we'll have like a 15-minute break, okay?
I think I did want to go and see the dawn as well.
Yeah, well, that's going to be after.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's up to you if you want to come back.
Like 4 something.
I think I'm going to have a 1 hour sleep, and then I'll because I'll do another I'll do my last sunrise in 1.5 hours.
Right.
I've done the whole standstill, the whole six days. So.
Well, thank you for your sharing anyway, Henk. We got a good insight. Are you there with a partner? Do you have a...
Yeah, my wife is sleeping at the moment.
Okay, so you've got backup with you.
I've got backup, yes. Got someone who pulls me on the ground when I start flying off.
And what does she think of the Druid path? Is she into it too?
No, she understands it. And she leaves me do my thing. And sometimes she joins in, like, you know, after the sunset tonight, we had a small party with some guitar singing and meeting. So she joined in on that. But
it's important.
She's on the skeptic side, and I like that.
Yes, Sophie's mother used to be that too, so we have the same dialect. Sophie's mother is related to Charles Darwin.
Really?
And so, Sue Craig, she was a relative of Charles Darwin. So we used to have these long arguments. Sue would always be saying spirituality is a load of nonsense. You can explain it through science. And I would be trying to explain that actually Darwin didn't understand certain things, which I think is true. And the same stubbornness and complete inability to understand spirituality came down through Sue's genes almost. It's very interesting, which is so wonderful that Sophie's grown out of that.
I've always
Darwin wrote a lot about love.
It was Helen that didn't get it. I've always had it. I've been living in conscious awareness, absolutely. But yeah, no. But Mum is a lover of nature. She loves watching the plants that are around and stuff. So she is very much of the earth. She just doesn't believe in reincarnation, which I discovered the other day, which is really difficult. But yeah, no, she's an absolute. You're both so phenomenal. I wish we could somehow manage to make you.
We had our time.
Get on, because you're both.
That's
Yeah.
great achievement. But so look, final thoughts. Yeah. I think we'll shut down. I'm going to close down and reboot the system. Let Henk have his sleep. You want to come back on? And
Just one question for you, Thomas. Did you listen to the 15 minutes of my Dutch friend?
well, tragically, my system, I could only speak and introduce people, but I couldn't hear what they were saying. So no, I didn't hear a word of it.
That's a shame. It's a very interesting initiative, the Peace Flame.
But
And
we did record the cloud, so I will replay it and listen to it. But tell me about her. You've known her for a while?
I know her for a very long time. She is on the heathen path. She is a heathen priestess.
Yeah.
And a few years ago, she started this Flame of Peace. And it's became an international thing. People from all over the world join in on her meditation moments and calling for world peace. And it's I like it. I think it's a very good heathen initiative.
Yeah, I mean, do you know Freya Aswin? Does she know?
Yeah, I know her. Yeah,
Because I really respect her work with the runes.
yeah.
To me, she's one of the great teachers around. I think she lives in Spain, and she was Dutch too, wasn't she?
Yeah. She still is.
Yeah. Now you have some very interesting ancient, traditions in both Belgium and Holland. It was all Celtic originally.
Yeah.
And there was a blurring of the Germanic tribes and the Celtic tribes.
One of the interesting bits is in the Germanic area is that the women would rule the tribes. And as soon as they made contact with tribes from more south, like Italy and Spain and France and Austria, they were more men-led, and there was a difficulty in understanding by those men that the women in the northern of Europe were making the actual decisions.
Which leads to another topic, which is the whole question of the gender of the sun and the moon, because some cultures in the north, the sun as female and the moon as masculine, whereas other cultures saw the sun as masculine and the female moon. That's a whole other topic that would be very interesting to explore. But it's interesting if the cultures which were more matriarchal and woman-led saw the sun as female, that's the powerful thing in the sky that runs everything. And the moon was the little man at her side that kind of died and got fat and then got thin. And, the little men had to service the goddess. That's one way of looking at it. I listened to a very interesting talk by Rupert Sheldrake, is the sun conscious? I asked him to come and give the talk for us on this meeting, but he's busy doing other things. But if you can find that talk on YouTube, it's called "Is the Sun Conscious?" And he does explore that through his scientific studies of what's called panpsychism. So if you define consciousness as something that's not just in the brain, but it's a field of awareness which is in the soul, which survives death, contrary to Darwin. And the evidence is that that is the case. And also that's in trees and in animals. And so why shouldn't it be in stars? And he talks about basically consciousness is an awareness of vibrational interconnection, the energy field from which everything is made, be it music or water. That's how water's so magical, because water is consciousness being water. Fire is consciousness manifesting as fire. Everything is consciousness. If we up our interpretation of what consciousness is, which is, let's call it the ultimate reality.
Yeah.
You know, to me, I'm interested in metaphysics. As you know, I'm a philosopher. So to me, it's the Druid philosophy that I'm interested in, not so much the calendar of observations. Although that's interesting and important, I think the metaphysics is when you reflect on the science behind that. So Dana, do you want to add something to that? Tell us.
I was just saying that I've been following the work of a very, I would say, highly advanced being here on Earth named Monsieur Anam, and he believes all of the stars are conscious, and he basically connects to the stars and downloads information, energies from the stars, and I tune into some of his work and some of his events, and we basically like integrate the energy from different stars and even different cosmic entities like clusters and nebula and other things that all have like a certain consciousness to them, and we can use the information that comes from them essentially in our own evolution. And it's really interesting, and it's really advanced. It's so advanced that it couldn't not be true, because he's so tuned into it, and it's like he just sees things in a very different way, kind of in a holographic way, essentially. And it's very, very interesting. I've been following his work for like 8 years now, and he keeps evolving it more and more. I just did a program with him, which totally involved tapping into all these star consciousnesses. It's very cool.
Sounds
Amazing.
Yeah.
And where is he based? What culture is he from? Is he from Hawaii or where?
Well, he's Indian by culture, but he lives in the U.S. and his website's called Life Harmonized.
Wow.
If you're interested in his work.
Okay, well, yeah, sounds
Cool.
fascinating. I'm sure there's something to that. But how does he tune into the stars? Does he get a telescope, or does he look on the internet? Well, how does he do it?
No, it's through consciousness. It's through meditation. Through connecting energetically through meditation. It's complicated though, because he also I think he sees things because he has a computer science background. He sees things in terms of those types of concepts and algorithms and things, and he creates these like holographic tools and processes that are based on his background in computer science, but he's working with these highly advanced things like the star consciousnesses, and it's really hard for me to totally explain it. But he's using things like programs and algorithms and processes that he invents, and he works in the energetic domain. Works in the energetic domain, and he describes also that he works on different planes, and he works with time as well, like we were doing, where we could sort of go into our whole timeline, both linearly and also as a sphere, and look at things that we wanted to harmonize, like over the next periods of time, and bring in these holographic tools to help harmonize things, and the star energies. It's like really, it's quite involved, but it's
it's connected to astrology in a sense that the stars were always given, the constellations had different qualities, didn't they? Mm-hmm. Grouping stars. It sounds like he's taking that up to a much more sophisticated level and working with individual stars. And
yeah, and different stars have different qualities. Like Maya, the star, one of the stars in the Pleiades, is like a healing energy, and Alcyon is like a very powerful star. There was another star, I think Electra, that has to do with technology. So they each have like certain gifts and frequencies, specific gifts that we can tap into. I can send you more information if you're interested.
And you see, one of the things Rupert Sheldrake said in his talk is the sun conscious. Because he's a scientist, an empirical scientist, he said, well, how can we design a test? How can we design an experiment? And one of his propositions was, what if we tried to send a message to the sun? Because the sun sends out signal bursts in not random, but, you know, in sort of random kind of ways. It sends out these huge plasmic bursts, which come off at funny angles. So Rupert was suggesting, why don't we send, you know, collectively you only need 100 meditators. Please send next Tuesday a burst, you know, 45 degrees east or something, and see if it works. You know, if the sun then did that, it would be like winking back at us and saying, yes, I got the message. Here's the burst. So we could get a kind of conversation going with the sun. That was Rupert's idea, which is totally heretical. Like the Royal Society and the astronomy world would lock him up for being crazy. But, you know, why don't we try it? It would be fun. And
yeah. I mean, yeah, Mashur connects with the sun all the time. I mean, that's like the primary star. And he did things starting years ago involving like the sun, and sees that definitely as a conscious being. That's why I thought about it. That's a good idea, though. I think, did you send the link for that talk by Rupert Sheldrake?
I can. I posted it on my, you know, Facebook.
I thought I remembered seeing it somewhere, or seeing you reference it somewhere, but I don't remember where now.
On Facebook, but I'll send it to you personally, okay? Right. So, any other points, or should we have a break? I mean, I'm happy to give a short little talk, but I don't want to, I don't want to keep you awake, as it were.
Well, you know, better stay awake instead of sleeping through the alarm. What is your opinion, Thomas, on Manly Hall?
Oh yes, no, I love him. I mean, secret.
I love his teachings. I love his books.
I love him. Yeah, he's a great polymathic genius. You know,
it's just if you look at his book, you know, his main book,
The
that
Secret
he wrote.
Teachings of All the Ages.
He wrote it at 25.
Hmm.
I feel wholly inadequate. I feel very inadequate comparing myself to that.
Yeah, I mean, but if you believe in reincarnation, as I do, you've got to realize that people like that come in with stuff. They don't just start from scratch. Right?
Yeah, but Israel Regardie wrote his books on very young age as well. And if you see how he writes at well, before he was 30, it's yeah.
No, he was genius. Yeah. I tell you what, as a special treat, because we're, you know, it's solstice and all that. I just want to share with you. I made a few notes of things I might talk about. My role is to just do the talks between other talks, you know. And I just think there's one thing I do want to share that I think you might be interested in. before we switch off and have a break. And this, we did mention, because the thing, we're talking about war and peace, right? And I've been reading a book about the 30 Years' War in Europe, which is, I'm a historian, and it's another 500-page thing. Most people in Britain don't realize how horrible this 30 Years' War was. It lasted from, well, till 1648, from 1618 to 1648. And large parts of Central Europe, the Holy Roman Empire it was called, Germany, were absolutely ravaged. There was plagues caused by loss of life. They think the population of that part of Europe plummeted because of the war and the disease and all that, to about a quarter of what it was before. And I discovered there was one town that was sacked called Magdeburg, which had 25,000 people in it. It was a Protestant town. This war was because Protestants and Catholics were going for each other. And neither of them would accept the other person's right to have their view. And this Protestant town was sacked by a Catholic army who killed every one of the 25,000 people, massacred them, also raped a lot of the girls and women to death. And only 400 people survived. The town was set on fire and they burned to death. And this became, I never heard of this event. I mean, I'm a historian. I did a degree in European history, for Christ's sake. But I'd never actually studied the details before I started reading this book. And I discovered that Schiller, and the great poet that he was, he actually knew about this Magdeburg massacre, and it was in the consciousness of people in Europe in a way that it isn't in Britain. And it wasn't until 1648 they finally made a peace. A Swedish king, Gustavus Adolphus, came from the north, won some big battles. Neither side could defeat the other. Neither the Protestants could win nor the Catholics. And eventually in 1648, out of sheer exhaustion, they made a Treaty of Westphalia, which is the foundation of the modern European state system, where they agreed you could be Catholic, you could be Protestant, and we'll accept that. We won't attack you. You can do your thing in Sweden and be Protestant. You can do that in northern Germany and be Protestant. In Holland, you can be Protestant. But in Belgium or, the Spanish Netherlands will be Catholic, and France and so on. So it was a really big breakthrough. And it was at that time that all the philosophers were active. Leibniz, Francis Bacon in England, Spinoza. The rise of philosophy was in frustration at this religious extremism on both sides. So Leibniz had a foot as both a Catholic and a Protestant. He worked sometimes in the Catholic world, sometimes in the Protestant world. He was at home in both. The same with Descartes, who lived at that time too. He was French Catholic, but he ended up in Holland writing his books, treatises on method and so on. So these people invented modern philosophy, what we call the Enlightenment, in a rejection of that religious extremism. And it was precisely at that time, that Enlightenment period, that the first Druidical reawakenings were going on. There was a man called John Toland, who was one of the most important Druids in Britain at the time, who was Irish, from an Irish Catholic background. He studied at a Protestant university in Scotland. He went to Oxford, met John Aubrey, who was the first guy to rediscover Avebury and Stonehenge. And John Aubrey is supposed to have set up a grove of Druids at Oxford, which Ronald Hutton talks about in his books. And so does the Order of Bards, Ovates and Druids, the man that founded that. They regard themselves as descended through John Aubrey's grove, the Mount Temus grove it was called. So I think the revival of Druidry at the time of the Enlightenment wasn't by chance. Newton was active at that time. He was another Enlightenment philosopher who had friends who were Catholics and friends who were Protestant. He published Principia Mathematica when there was a Catholic on the throne of Britain, James II. Very happy. He dedicated the book to him, but he was a Protestant as well. You see, a true philosopher is both Protestant and Catholic and Druid, and it's like the phases of the moon. You know, you don't say, why would you have a war between the people that worship the full moon against the people that worship the new moon or something? That is so bonkers. So we need to grow out of this religious bigotry that's still, you know, planet between Muslims versus Jews versus Christians versus pagans. To me, they're all phases of the one cosmic light. And Newton said exactly the same thing when he was writing at Cambridge. Not only did he write his book on mathematics, he also wrote a book on religion, which nobody's ever heard of, because he was told never to publish it. The theologians at the University of Cambridge told him, Isaac, put the book away. And it was never published till 1954 by the University of Liverpool. What Newton said in that book is that just as light refracts the colors of the rainbow, the one pure white light becomes the manyness of the rainbow colors. So the one original light of pure divine knowledge, the original religion of man, if you will, over history and over time develops into the colors which we know as Judaism, Buddhism, Hinduism, etc. But what he said is the most original is the pagan light. So Newton was secretly, actually, very friends with William Stukely, who also did the first detailed drawings of Avebury. Stukely was a close friend of Newton who wrote his biography. So you can imagine Newton and Stukely would have been talking about Druidry all the time. And he said as much in his book, if you read it properly. And that's why it was suppressed, because the trouble with the British intellectual establishment, it was happy to have Newton's maths to use it for military warfare. You could work out a trajectory of shells through gravitational, you know, blah, blah. They didn't want to know about the primal light of ancient wisdom. And that was the most important thing Newton did. So in my Encyclopedia of Druid Studies, I've gone into this in enormous detail, explained how Enlightenment philosophers like Newton actually were rediscovering Druidry at that time. And a lot of what we call science is founded on the work of people like Descartes, Bacon, Newton, and so on. We need to rediscover their Druidical foundations. And then the lost teachings they left about peace, because all of those thinkers, Leibniz, Descartes, Bacon, and Newton, just to take those four giants, who all had this Druid kind of understanding and depth. They were all peace thinkers, fed up with Catholic versus Protestants, you know, the stupid war games that are going on. And that's what I'm saying we need to revive now as a peace Druid, because only now it has to be even more extensive. It's not just Catholics and Protestants going for it. It's Muslims and Jews and you know, everyone, Uncle Sam, Russia, it's nations. You can see all these conflicts from a much more sublime level, a much higher wisdom. And they literally are just battles about the phase of the moon. I've discovered something very, very interesting. And he said that, can you still hear me all right?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. So this guy did a film called Exodus. He's a genius. He's discovered that Moses lived at the time of the pharaoh Ahmose I in 1500 BC, not at the time of Ramses II, who made the peace treaty with the Hittites in 1290 BC. And Egyptology it doesn't fit, right? So So a lot of conventional scientific archaeology dismisses the Bible, it's all made up. However, if you put Moses back at the time of Ahmose, he is the Egyptian pharaoh that kicked out the Hyksos from Egypt. And it fits with, and they found stelae and stuff, telling his side of the story. It's the Exodus story told from the Egyptian angle. So instead of good Israelites fleeing wicked Pharaoh, bad, evil Egyptians, God's on our side, the Egyptians tell it completely differently. They horrible Israelite types back to their homeland. And so, you know, it's the same story told in reverse. Now, what's really interesting about this, if you do your research, Ahmose was named after the moon god of Egypt at that time. And that was spelled YHW, Yahweh. And the moon god of Egypt, it was Yahweh. Now, my speculation is that Moses, brought up at the court of Ahmose I, was taught magical moon mysteries associated with this secret god, Yahweh, who was a male god, by the way, and who was the god of number and time and differentiation. And that fits with the Yahweh traditions of Israel, which he took with him when they went into exile. So he stole the idea of the moon god, repackaged it for, you know, his tribal escape group. Now, if you put that into historical calculation, I think it makes a lot of psychological sense, because the Hebrew mind loves detail. They're brilliant mathematicians. The Talmudic studies of every letter of the alphabet of the Torah is very moon detailed. And Thoth was the inventor of writing and scripts. Well, this is Thoth. It's Thoth worship. So when the Hermetic Renaissance started, John Dee and people in Europe, we found these Hermetic writings from ancient Egypt, which they translated in Florence, and then Dee had them in London at the court of Queen Elizabeth. And everyone said, look, these Hermetic writings go back to the very earliest times of human history. And in the normal Catholic tradition, they said, yeah, but there isn't a problem, because Thoth, the god Hermes, called by the Greeks Hermes, is the same God as Christ was teaching from, was coming from that same place. Well, I reckon that figures, because Yahweh, the moon god, is Thoth under a different name. And Christ's name, Jesus, means Yahweh saves, Yah saves. So, so anyway, the more I've done my research into these really early ancient archaeological discoveries that have been made, I tried to get this guy Simca to speak during our little symposium. Maybe we'll get him for next year. He's a really brilliant guy. So the more I've realized that literally these wars that are going on are a stupid battle between, you know, who's got which phase of the moon or which cycle of the sun going. So where I'm coming from is we need to re-emphasize the Druid critique of the extremism that's going on. And you'll find the equivalent of Druids among the Muslims. In the Islamic faith, there's a whole Hermetic tradition. They called Hermes Idris, and he was the sage. And in Gnostic, Shiite, Sufi traditions in Islam, you really, really respect Idris and scholars that work within that tradition. Those are the seers of Islam. They're the equivalent to the Druids. I was once in Palestine meeting a Sufi. For the first hour, he refused to speak to me. He was convinced I worked for British intelligence and, you know, hates British people because we all brought Zionism and we're all evil. We had I was working through an interpreter, and I explained, no, I'm not I don't work for intelligence, I work for wisdom, and B, I'm a druid. What's that? And then when I explained very simply well, look, we built Stonehenge and Avebury. We were there like 8,000 BC. We're the ancient priests and wisdom keepers of our island, just as you are here in the Sufi world. He got it in an instant. The penny dropped. He understood exactly where I was coming from. His face broke out into smiles, and he took my hand, and he wouldn't let it go. He said, "You and I are brothers." He really understood, because from that Sufi wisdom tradition, that Idris knowledge, we are literally one people. Because Islam, by the way, is an offshoot of the same Yahwist knowledge that I was talking about, the same moon wisdom. That's why the moon is the symbol on all the Islamic flags. It's on every single mosque. That's why they date time by the sighting of the moon, as does the Hebrew calendar. So this moon thing, I mean, is pretty extraordinary, actually. And I wasn't saying don't follow the cycles of the moon. What I'm saying is do it even more so with attention to other faith traditions, and you'll find actually we're all working the same wisdom traditions. If you were in Israel, you'd be called a rabbi, or a Sufi in Islam. But it's the same ultimate thing. But the thing is to trace it back to that cosmic consciousness that Dana and I were talking about, the consciousness of not just the sun, but all the stars. That's what Spinoza said. When Spinoza said, he worked this out, he said, everything is in the mind of God. Every atom of the universe, every star, every flower, every physical body, every vibration is vibrating in the cosmic mind of God. This is why war is such a stupid idea. We should be appreciating and valuing each other, loving each other. That was why Christ was trying to say that. Because we are literally each other. We're made of each other, which is what Sophie was saying in her lovely ritual that I think you guys missed. We breathe each other was one of the songs she sang. So anyway, that's kind of one of the things I wanted to share. And I'm really excited about this. I think this is the key to peace. And that's why the Druid Peace Order, we're just trying to remind people of this unity, and point to the folly and stupidity of the militarization of science. This is really annoying to me, that they pinch the ideas of all these geniuses like Newton and stuff, and they misuse them. Einstein is another genius who understood what I'm talking about. If he was here on this seminar, I knew a guy very well, Dr. Carl Shapley, whose father, Harlow Shapley, was head of astronomy at Harvard University in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, a friend of Roosevelt. It was Harlow Shapley that discovered the galactic structure of the universe. Before Harlow did his detailed observations, they thought the universe was just made of stars, which kind of stretched out evenly everywhere, more or less. He worked out, no, it's not. It's in galaxies that are clustered, and we're in one of them, the Milky Way. And he could work out the measurements. So he totally transformed the map of the heavens. And he was a personal close friend of Einstein. He used to come round to the house they lived on in Harvard, where my friend Carl was a little boy and remembered Einstein growing up. He would play the violin and was a really, good bloke. Well, he was a peace activist, Einstein. He never wanted his knowledge to be misused. And after the war, he didn't want nuclear weapons to be developed by nation states. He thought this knowledge should be in like a, UN only type of Security Council. Imagine a proper Security Council had a monopoly of that. There would never have been a Cold War and never have been the total chaos we've had of these rivals superpowers playing spy games. So I'm with Einstein and Newton and Bacon and Leibniz and saying, Druids say enough is enough to the wars and the lies that come with them. the final thing I want to say is the etymology of Druid is connected to Dharma, which is the Hindu, Jain, and Buddhist word for truth. To be a true Druid, you have to stand by your word and live in truth and love truth. And it's symbolized by the oak tree, which is the strongest tree in the forest. But it's the Dharma that is behind that is what a Druid, worships, which is what any sage is committed to. I mean, Gandhi said, "My whole life has been an experiment with truth." Gandhi understood the power of truth. And we had a chap on earlier, Satya, whose name means the truth giver. So therefore, I think if we could, remember, each of us, to honor our word, honor our truth to our friends, our neighbors, our loved ones, and also to our enemies, speak the truth to them gently, and they'll come around, as Henk said so eloquently, just use mind over muscle, reason instead of chaotic emotion. That summed it up, in a very succinct way. So look, blessings on everyone, and I think that there's a lot of remembering to do, because we have a lot to to do to bring this military junta who seized power in my country and in America and in Israel and other countries around the world. The military weapons experts who get paid billions to invent weapons of death, using science, have hijacked control of society. And now through propaganda instruments like Facebook has become, it's been militarized as sort of war machine by Cambridge Analytica and their dark operatives, Steve Bannon and co. So we have to reclaim that for peace. That's our mission. Not an easy one, because they are clever, but they're also morally stupid because they're misusing their knowledge and power for the wrong ends. And our weapon, that's why I have the sword of truth, the sword of peace that can cut through all that nonsense, which I was given in Avebury. And, it belongs to the community. So, it can come back one day when somebody else is there who can speak truth powerfully enough to knock these forces of evil on the head. So that's the purpose of our, coming together for this solstice. I seem to have a very active cat. Okay, so any questions, any comments? That was my little summing up of one of the things I was going to say tonight. I hope, could you hear that?
Yeah, no, I absolutely enjoyed it.
Okay, you could hear
it. Philosophy is one of the things that I'm quite interested in, and see how things evolved philosophy-wise, which also makes it difficult, as Plato formed our logic, our modern logic, and these stone circles are all pre-Plato. So what seems logic to us might have been completely the opposite in logic to the people who built these stone circles. So it's very difficult for us to reach back to the true meaning of those circles at all.
Well, I think that in my Dictionary of Druid Studies, where I've gone into all this, I mean, I've put a lot of work in about Plato and the Platonic tradition. And I think there's an absolute clear connection between Plato through the mystery schools of Greece and the Orphic tradition, going back to, you see, the people of the Thracian world, which is now what is Bulgaria, where Orpheus came from, which influenced the whole Pythagorean thing. They were bashing up against the Celtic tribes of the Thracian region. And in my Dictionary of Druid Studies, I've explained that's where Orpheus gets his singing head from. When he dies, Orpheus's head goes on singing. And it's the same in Celtic legend. Bran, the king of Britain, is beheaded, but his head goes on singing, and it's buried at the White Tower.
But isn't that a sort of a circle? Because when you read on, when you dive deeper into the Celtic mythology,
Yeah.
A lot of it is written that it was sort of written down by monks who filled in the gaps with their knowledge of the Greek mythology. So it's a bit difficult to say what is really Celtic tradition and which gaps were filled with the knowledge of the Greek mythology at the time.
I know what you're saying, and yes, that's the sort of painstaking work that needs to be done to unpick the layers. I'm still looking for Posidonius's lost work on one of the greatest Stoics, who spent about a couple of years traveling around Gaul, interviewing all the Druids and wrote it all down. He was such a famous philosopher that Pompey, the great, was in awe of him, right? So I'm looking for the lost books of Posidonius, and if I can't find them, I'm going to write them again anyway, just for fun, and pretend I found them in some cave near me, you know. But no, seriously, I think it was a toing and froing. It was a fusion. The Greeks and the Celts actually really respected each other.
No, that's true. We know Druids traveled to Greece
Absolutely.
and shared, and vice versa.
Yeah, and so the legend of Bath, you know, Bladud, who founds Bath, goes to Athens for his training and then comes back and founds an academy. Plato was an inspired visionary genius, and he was a shaman. He's the founder of the academic initiatory school, which I'm also a member of, you know. And but it's the same ultimate root source as the Druid schools. You know, some sort of New Age types who wander around Avebury don't get this. They think Druidry is against reason. It's against science. It's against logic. And, you know, they don't want to study because it's too difficult. They just want to, like, get it immediately, like a sort of fix of cocaine. No, it's not like that. To be a Druid, I mean, it's as it is to become a proper academic. And it is about purifying and working with the reason, and then taking up to the highest levels of insight and enlightenment, which is what Plato is a great thing. When you leave the cave of illusion, which is ego battles, power struggles, blah, blah, normal life, Trump tweets, you get out of the cave and you get into the sunlight. Plato describes this moment of enlightenment. It's like when the guy in the cave all his life gets to see the sun. Well, that's symbolizing what's happening at some solstice shortly, and when the sun goes up in a few hours. And so Plato uses the solar image to explain this enlightenment experience. He was a Druid, is basically my argument. I've made it in the Encyclopedia of Druid Studies. I speculated even, we know Aristotle knew about Druids because he refers to them in his writings, and he had a respect for them. Although he grumbled the Celts were a bit too fond of two things: too much alcohol and too much homosexuality, which is ironic coming from a Greek, if you don't mind my saying.
No, true. But and of course you'll find the Pythagoras triangles back into the measurement of the stone circles. There are 3, 4, 5 measurements.
Okay. Well, Aberys, who was a friend, teacher, student, colleague of Pythagoras, was from the Hyperborean realm, which is Britannia, where the stone circles came from. And they worshipped Apollo, Hyperborea, Apollo of the extreme north. The god of the Druids was Apollo. The Greeks worked it out, they knew. Well, Apollo is the same as the god Lu, who is the great sun god, in my opinion, of the Celts, of the Irish tribes. And so when we know that Greek sailors got here, Pythias traveled around Britain and so on. And so Greek philosophers and was a mutual fusion of interests. So Pythagoras' interest in reincarnation, which came down to Plato, was partly from Druid sources. And the Romans didn't get all this. They weren't such subtle thinkers. They were more brutish, more military types, like the guys that run the MOD today. You can't have conversations like we're having with them. They would say, what's all this head wanking? No, let's go and build a bridge. Let's go and blow somebody up. Let's go drop bombs on Yemen. That's good for the money. That's how they think. That's how the Romans thought. And it was a Roman soldier that killed Archimedes, one of the great Greek minds of all time. He was a Druid. These were savants. These were serious intellectuals who understood that to understand the mysteries, you have to be patient. You have to sit like a hunter, silently, as you were told, to move through the forest without leaving a track. That's to become a hunter. You have to do that with ideas. So you have to sit outside, the works of Plato or Newton or something before it comes to you. To be patient to get higher learning, and to combine oral knowledge with written knowledge. Druids knew you can't write all these secrets down. They're oral. It's not that we don't want to write them down. It's just that the alphabet's not complicated enough. It's not sophisticated enough to get all the levels of meaning. Maybe we can do it in poetry, but we can't do it in normal prose, which was Aristotle's mistake. He tried to write it all down, and you can't. His logic, therefore, was quite cumbersome and simplistic, and it had to be rectified by Hegel, who made it a bit more sophisticated. Hegel came from a very druidical part of the Rhine region, by the way. In my Encyclopedia of Druid Studies, I've explained the amazing archaeological discoveries they're making in Europe at the moment of Druid tombs, Celtic artifacts, showing full of trade links through to Greece from like 700 BC, 800 BC. These people were in close communication with the Mediterranean region, with the Etruscan civilization, which was more sophisticated than Roman. Etruscan priests were quite sophisticated, especially their calendar stuff. And they've discovered some calendar, engraved on tablets in Etruscan archaeological discoveries and written books about it, I think, which show traces again of Druid learning. Yeah. So, okay. Can you hear? Right, Dana, say a few words before you go, and then we'll shut down and have a break. Just say goodbye briefly.
Right. Well, I certainly agree with you that all of the useless fights between people who basically believe essentially the same thing, like the sects of Christianity and all of the religions, really, to me, have always seemed completely nonsensical. Like, can't even imagine why, two Christian religions, let alone all of the religions, would be fighting about basically believing the same thing, essentially. And so I think we definitely, as a society and a planet, need to get beyond those rather petty, immature types of conflicts and fear-based differences. So just want to echo that sentiment. And
America.
Sorry?
Through these difficult times. How is Nevada coping with the virus?
How is Nevada? Oh, well, we've had the same types of lockdown, things closed. Things are just reopening again now. but in general, people have been, advised to stay home. Basic stores have been open, but not the other types of businesses. And then just recently, the casinos reopened again, and other restaurants have started to reopen. But now they're a little bit concerned, I think, that there's an increase in cases again. So it's not quite over. I haven't been anywhere in since February, basically, except to the park, which is totally fine. It's all right.
When I was in Nevada, I drove on the extraterrestrial highway.
Oh, yeah.
Which is the highway with the most UFO sightings. And you actually see a small plate of an alien and a few bullet holes in it.
That's interesting. I should find that because I'm very interested in ETs, especially the benevolent ones. So that's in Nevada.
It is an actual name, extraterrestrial highway.
Highway, really?
Yeah.
I wonder what part of the state that's in.
We drove towards Las Vegas, or from Las Vegas towards Reno. It's on either towards Las Vegas or towards Reno.
Okay. Well, I'm in the Las Vegas area right now, but I'll look it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll put you in touch through emails, then you can carry on chatting, and you can.
I'll try to tune back in if I can to more of. I know this keeps going for into the next day, and so.
Yeah. Anyway, lovely to see you, Donna.
Yeah, it was very nice to see you. Yes, and I'd like to be in touch. I'm sorry I haven't been as great a correspondent as I want to be sometimes. It's not personal. I want to stay in touch. Sometimes I just get overwhelmed and busy with lots of things. So.
The heart direct. Do the telepathy thing with the heart.
Exactly. Okay.
Okay. Bless you. Nice to meet you.
Aloha for now.
Be in touch.
Happy sunrise.
Good. So I'm going to shut down for a bit.
Yeah.
It's you with another speaker due. Shalom to everyone. Get some sleep.